is coming to an end. Yes, y'all. Thank you for tuning in one more time. It is your boy, Genesis. You know what time it is. All right. With that being said, I am going to delve into the show. It is Monday morning. Monday morning. How is your Monday going? How is your Monday morning going? Let me know how your Monday morning is going. And I know you've heard the news. Some of you may have heard the news. Some of you may have not heard the news. But the news is Joe Biden pardons Hunter. Joe Biden has pardoned Hunter Biden. I know you've heard the news. Some of you may. It is what it is. He pardons his son. I mean, it's just my personal opinion is he's going to do what he has to do for his family. This is his family. He's definitely going to pardon his son. There's no way he wasn't going to pardon his son. I don't know why people are like so surprised he did it. If I was Joe Biden, I would have done it a long time ago. I, I would have done it a long, long time ago. This ain't even a conversation. This is just facts. Okay? This is facts. I would have done it a long time ago. But he's not the only one that pardoned a family member, uh, family relations, or whatever. Bill Clinton did it. Uh, Trump, Trump did it. So you guys don't get offended. Conservatives, do not get offended. Don't get offended. He did what he had to do. It's family first. All right. All right. Let's get straight to it. Biden signs pardon for son Hunter.
And I think we have Fox News Sunday anchor and chief legal correspondent Shannon Bream joins us by phone. Hey, Shannon.
Hey, Charlie. Good evening to you guys. Big news for your Sunday night show.
Yes, it is big news. Were you surprised by this?
You know what? Part of me, yes, part of me, no. I mean, we had all pressed the White House many times. You've seen Peter Doocy do it and Jackie Heinrich and all of us asking whether this was a possibility, asking every different way, would there be a pardon? Would there be a commutation? And repeatedly being told, no, it absolutely will not happen. But there was always this part of me that thought, listen, if you're the outgoing president of the United States, you have the power to spare your son. You're going to do it, and I think a lot of the American people will understand what you've done as a father. I think it's very interesting, the wording we have from this release from the White House. It says a full and unconditional pardon for the offenses against the U.S. which he has committed, meaning Hunter Biden, or may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024, including but not limited to all of the offenses charged or prosecuted by the special counsel. So this is beyond the two cases. This is saying if there's anything else in that period for essentially 10 years, I, as President Joe Biden, am giving him a full pardon for things that may not have even been charged yet, that may possibly still be out there. So
That's
I think
such a
it's pretty
fascinating
sweeping.
point. So, and just on legal, speaking technically, the difference between a commutation. Explain the difference between a commutation and a pardon, and then how that applies to this full pardon.
Yeah, this full pardon, I mean, that wipes it out as if the person was never guilty. They were never, tagged with this crime, with this result. It didn't happen. Commutation, you may have served part of your sentence. You may wipe out part of the sentence, but it doesn't get rid of the guilt, the underlying conviction or plea deal. So they are different, and this one is much more expansive in that respect. And remember, I mean, this release from the White House and from the president talks about the fact that they believe he was politically prosecuted. But remember, as that deal came together, that then fell apart when a federal judge, started asking questions. Remember, we heard from those IRS whistleblowers, which you guys have mentioned. I've interviewed them and interviewed Joseph Ziegler, who talked about this is not a conservative guy. But he said, I was watching these cases unfolded, and essentially our hands were tied. We couldn't get to certain evidence. We couldn't talk to certain people. And, he felt burdened enough as an IRS investigative agent that he wanted to come forward and say this deal is not legit.
Shannon, Lisa Booth here. So you had mentioned that this pardon is much broader than just the time period for the gun charges and the.
Joe Biden did what he had to do. He did what he had to do as a father. It is your child first, okay? I don't care what anybody says. You can say what you want to say, but he is a father before a president. He pardoned his son. Anybody would have pardoned their child. I would have done it a long time ago. The only issue I have with him is he said he wasn't going to do it. So the fact that you said you weren't going to do it and then did it, it's the only thing that I have against this whole situation right here. But the fact that he pardoned his son, a father pardoned his son, and people have issues about it. I would have pardoned him for 20 years. Anything he's done from 20 years ago. Matter of fact, 30 years. Matter of fact, since he was born. Look, I don't care. He is my son.
Tax charges as well. What does that signal to you in looking at this as, potential further guilt of Hunter Biden and things he might have done?
Well, I think that the president, having decided that he was going to switch the messaging we got from the White House, which was no pardon, no commutation, I think once he decided to move forward this for his son, I mean, he's going to not have this power in a few more weeks. And he wanted to step forward, do this for his son, and expect that many of the American people are going to understand a father doing that. But it does go beyond the two cases he was awaiting sentencing in. It's much broader. Not that there's any indication there's anything else Hunter would have been charged with, but I think the president, having decided he was going to take this step, he wanted to make it as broad as possible to give as much protection to Hunter as possible for that time period that probably links up with when he, prior to the last 5.5 years or so that he's been sober, but when he was really struggling with addiction. And the president has always tried to protect him, saying, people make bad decisions in their addictions, and he's cleaned up his life. And I think the president wanted to issue as much possible protection for him as broadly as he could before he leaves office.
What is? Do you have a theory as to why? Usually we get these pardons like midnight on January 19th, and there's like a raft of them. They get all the embarrassing ones in there, as well as the more defensible ones. And as you point out, this one will be perhaps easier to defend because you're talking about a guy's son, but also not exactly a political high point for Joe Biden. But I wonder why he would do it, a month and a half before he leaves office.
Yeah, well, you're coming off of a holiday weekend. A lot of people may be traveling, maybe not paying attention. You drop it on a Sunday night. It's certain to make headlines on Monday morning, but our news cycles go so quickly. What's going to be the headline by Monday night? By the time you get to those traditional evening news watchers, although we have news 24 hours a day on Fox News for you, it may have been that maybe there was some family discussion over this Thanksgiving weekend and a real heart-to-heart and a real soul-searching by President Biden. Also, he's getting ahead of the sentencing because those were coming. And I had thought, listen, if Hunter Biden gets some jail time assigned to these, convictions, maybe then the president would say, okay, I'm not going to let my son go to jail. But there's something about doing this ahead of the sentencings that, will wipe them out. So we don't have to find out whether Hunter Biden it's simply going to be a matter of fines or probation or whether there would have been jail time that also came with these sentencings. The president is getting ahead of that.
And for those of you home that are just joining us now, just want to kind of update you on the situation here. This is breaking news coming out of Washington. According to NBC, President Biden will be signing a pardon for his son Hunter, which essentially means no jail time whatsoever for him, and he gets off scot-free. We have Shannon.
Man, no jail time, man. There is no way my son would go to jail and I am the president of the United States. What? What are we even talking about? This is a no-brainer. The fact that he said he wasn't going to do it and he was going to let the DOJ and the jury do what they wanted to do, that was just cap on cap. I would have pardoned my son a long time ago. Matter of fact, since I heard about all of this stuff, I would have pardoned my son. I don't care what nobody say. I don't like Joe Biden. I don't like what he stands for. I didn't vote for him. I would never vote for a person like that. However, as a father, this right here is the only thing logical to do.
Bream on the phone. Shannon, I want to talk about the charges that he faced and the charges that he's getting off on. On December 12th, he was scheduled to be sentenced in his conviction on federal gun charges. And then also he was set to be sentenced in a separate criminal case on December 16th after pleading guilty in September on federal tax evasion charges. He pled guilty to those charges. So that was a deal that he obviously tried to plea out on by pleading guilty. He was hoping for a lesser sentence if in fact he were to be sentenced. Let's say hypothetically that this pardon didn't happen. What kind of jail time do you think he could face?
Well, there were many skeptics out there, including, people who are, right of center, including former prosecutors who said, listen, these cases are not ones that I would have brought. This guy is, there are other people that do things like lie on gun forms that doesn't often get prosecuted. So there was a sense among a lot of people, and that includes, our colleague Trey Gowdy, who was a longtime federal prosecutor, who said, I'm not sure I would have brought these cases or that they would have been strong cases against somebody considered a first-time offender. So he has expressed real doubts that there would have been serious jail time. But, when you look at these two cases, it's not just a situation of him being a first-time offender, because you do have two sets of separate federal charges that ended up with some type of guilt for him. So those could have piggybacked into something bigger. But there were a lot of folks who thought, as a first-time offender, probably not a serious amount of jail time, if any.
Okay, Shannon, we've got a statement from President Biden saying, today I signed a pardon for my son Hunter, alleging that the prosecution of his son was politically motivated and a miscarriage of justice. Quote, the charges in this case came about only after several of my political opponents in Congress investigated them to attack me and oppose my election. No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's case can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son. I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision. Biden added, claiming he made the decision this weekend. He and the family are spending Thanksgiving holiday in Nantucket, Massachusetts, with the entire family. So as you pointed out, Julie, they were clearly, this was a family discussion, or maybe you said that, Shannon. This was a family discussion over Thanksgiving.
I think he's known all along that he was going to pardon his son. He did actually think he was going to get reelected, but there's no question in my mind that obviously they had to have talked about it over the weekend because his time is coming to a close. But I believe from the get-go he knew he was going to pardon his son. I'm not sure
Of
too many
course he
presidents that
knew he
wouldn't
was going to
pardon
pardon his son.
And a statement from
Who wouldn't?
Hunter Biden saying, I have admitted and taken responsibility for my mistakes during the darkest days of my addiction, mistakes that have been exploited to publicly humiliate
Just take the pardon and
shame me and my
chill,
family
bro.
for political sport, said Hunter Biden.
Do we still have Shannon on the phone?
Here.
Shannon, I wanted this, Lisa Booth again. I wanted to have you walk us down memory lane of that sweetheart deal that Hunter Biden originally got. Take us through why that fell apart and how abnormal was that deal from deals that you've seen previously.
Well, listen, the federal judge had serious issues with it when it came before her. And he and his team, Hunter's team, legal team, felt like they had worked out all of the details, all of the potential, barriers and challenges there, that this was going to get done. It was going to be done quietly in this federal courtroom, and they would move on. President Biden, in his statement, refers to it this way: as a carefully negotiated plea deal agreed to by the DOJ. It unraveled in a courtroom, he says, with a number of my
So I see a lot of people saying, well, as a father, you're supposed to punish your son, not keep him out of trouble. Bill Clinton pardoned his half brother or step brother, Roger. The legendary, the Don, the 45th, the 47th president elect, Donald Trump. Yeah, the legendary Trump pardoned his father-in-law, something like that. His daughter's husband's father, Kushner. He got pardoned. So nobody should say Joe Biden did anything wrong. If Trump's son was going through any of this, Trump would have definitely pardoned his son. It is what it is. You have to put your family first. So wait, you're gonna say bad things about Biden, but then you let Trump slide? Man, look, I support Trump. I voted for Trump. But this right here, I support Joe Biden. Pardon your child.
Political opponents in Congress taking credit for bringing political pressure on the process. But it was the federal judge herself who started to ask questions about this deal. Again, there were questions about language that seemed to be very sweeping about not only covering him from the charges that he was facing, but against other potential future or other charges. And there was a real dispute about that. And even after it fell apart, Hunter's legal team for a long time argued that it was still in effect, that they had not broken away from the deal, and that the DOJ was still bound by that. Clearly, the DOJ, the special counsel, did not agree, but it was that judge who first started to ask questions and raised some real concerns that it didn't feel like a normal, solid plea deal to her as somebody who, this is what she does as a federal judge, and she would have to sign off on the deal, and she had enough concerns that she did not.
Okay, so we now have the entire statement, and it's a little long, but it's worth reading. Today, I signed a pardon for my son Hunter. From the day I took office, I said I would not interfere.
So people are asking, can a presidential pardon be overturned? No, never. A presidential pardon can never be overturned. It is what it is. Hunter is a free dude. Thanks to that. Thanks to Joe, Hunter is good to go.
With the Justice Department's decision making and kept my word, even as I have watched my son being selectively and unfairly prosecuted without aggravating factors like use in a crime, multiple purchases, or buying a weapon as a straw purchaser. People are almost never brought to trial on felony charges solely for how they filled out a gun form. Those who were late paying their taxes because they're serious addictions, but paid them back subsequently with interest and penalties, are typically given non-criminal resolutions. It is clear that Hunter was treated differently. The charges in this case came about only after several of my political opponents in Congress investigated them and attacked me and opposed my election. Then a carefully negotiated plea deal agreed to by the Department of Justice unraveled in the courtroom, with a number of my political opponents in Congress taking credit for bringing political pressure on the process. Had the plea deal held, it would have been a fair, reasonable resolution of Hunter's cases. No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son, and that is wrong. There has been an effort to break Hunter, who has been 5.5 years sober, even in the face of unrelenting attacks and selective prosecution. In trying to break Hunter, they're trying to break me, and there's no reason to believe it will stop here. Enough is enough. For my entire career, I have followed a simple principle. Just tell the American people the truth. They'll be fair-minded. Here's the truth. I believe in the justice system, but as I have wrestled with this, I also believe raw politics has infected.
Man, there's no point saying all this long story, Joe. Joe, you don't have to explain yourself. This is my son. I am pardoning my son. Just like Trump is most likely going to pardon himself. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to pardon himself. There is no way he's not going to pardon himself. And if he doesn't, then of course, he's just played the G role. He just played the G role. But it is what it is. Biden isn't the first person to pardon his family member or whatever. Trump did it. Bill Clinton did it. Okay, so everybody chill, relax. Okay, just relax. Come on, that's his son. What is this supposed to do? Send him to jail? Hell no.
All right, it's 6 a.m. on the East Coast, and it's Monday, December the 2nd, and this is Fox and Friends.
It is indeed. All right, folks, Fox News Alert. You saw this, I'm sure. President Biden has pardoned his son Hunter of any offenses from the past decade, despite Joe Biden's many promises to the American public that went something like this.
A pardon for your son?
Yes. I said I'd abide by the jury decision. I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Plus, this morning, closing arguments begin in Daniel Penny's subway chokehold trial. We will take you to the courthouse as the Marine veteran faces up to 15 years in prison if convicted.
Wow, and the migrant crisis by the numbers as President-elect Trump gets ready for his day one border action. Kind of those days have started already, it seems, where $182 billion taxpayer dollars have gone. That's the big question.
Fox and Friends starts right now.
We start with a Fox News alert. President Biden pardoning his son Hunter last night, excusing any offenses the first son might have committed over the past decade.
That's a long time. Madeline Rivera joins us right now from Washington, D.C. Madeline, you know, even though Joe Biden said he's not going to do it, we all knew he was going to do it.
Yeah, it's really such a major reversal for this president, Steve. So the White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, said as recently as last month, the president wouldn't commute his son's sentence or pardon him, yet he did so anyway because he said Hunter's charges were meant to break him politically. The president saying in part, here's the truth. I believe in the justice system, but as I have wrestled with this, I also believe raw politics has infected this process and it led to a miscarriage of justice. Hunter was found guilty in June on 3 federal gun charges. In September, he pled guilty to 9 federal tax charges. He was supposed to have sentencing hearings on December 12th for his gun case and December 16th for his tax case. All of those now gone. But the president's pardon doesn't just cover these offenses. It covers any.
Okay, Hunter, here we go. So Hunter Biden's conviction and upcoming court dates was 1 count tax evasion, 2 counts filing false tax return, 4 counts failure to pay taxes, 2 counts failure to file taxes, 1 count false statement in purchase of a firearm, 1 count false statement to licensed firearm, 1 count possession of firearm by unlawful user of controlled substance, sentencing on gun charges on December 12th, sentencing on tax charges on December 16th. You are a free man, bro. Daddy is president. What do you think this is? Y'all in the comment section saying you're not going to pardon your son. There is absolutely no way you would be the president of the United States and your son does this and you wouldn't pardon him. Man, give him a break.
Any crime the first son may have committed between January 2014 to December 2024, and that time frame is notable, given that Hunter joined the board of Burisma Holdings in 2014, and he has been scrutinized for his foreign business dealings.
It also shows a degree of contempt for the American people. You know, this is a president who didn't just simply lie about not ever speaking to his son's business associates, of never being in meetings with them. But he lied repeatedly to the American people when he was a candidate for re-election.
The president says he made this decision over the weekend while spending the Thanksgiving holiday with his family in Nantucket. But NBC, which was the first to report this news, says the president had been talking about the possibility of pardoning Hunter with close aides as far back as June when Hunter was convicted on those guns.
Okay, so Cap. Christopher Strider says he's the first person to pardon someone for 10 years. Yes, he is, but he's not the only person that's ever pardoned family members. Okay, Bill Clinton did it. Trump did it. Trump did it. Trump did it. Trump did it. Okay, so everybody chill. Chill, okay? Trump did it. I voted for Trump, but Trump did it too. Trump pardoned his daughter's husband's father, Kushner. Okay, so everybody chill.
Charges. Lauren,
Right.
Steve, Brian, and Ainsley.
Thank you so much, Maddie. It's interesting that the pardon starts on January 1st, 2014. He joined Burisma, the board of Burisma, 4 months after that in April. So this goes back to Joe Biden being the vice president. Something else I found interesting in the president's remarks, in his, paragraphs full of
His pardon.
How he believes his son was treated differently and singled out because his dad was the president. He said, quote, "I have followed a simple principle. Just tell the American people the truth." Well, he lied. He did. He lied to us. He said he wasn't going to pardon him. But part of his pardon statement is say, tell the truth.
Yeah, but Ainsley, that's because according to Joe Biden, those mean Republicans came after him, and ultimately, I think the reason it's a 10-year span is, I was talking to somebody in law enforcement yesterday. They said it's almost an implicit admission of guilt, acknowledging there is criminal adjacent stuff that has gone uncharged. Also, ultimately, this means nobody can go after Hunter for anything he did during that 10-year period.
Even
Essentially,
giving money to the big guy?
well, any of it. It is essentially a remarkable get-out-of-jail-free card.
So I would say, number one, it can't be true because he said repeatedly over and over again, I'm not going to pardon my son Hunter. And he also says he's got great trust in the criminal justice system. However, in this case, I've watched it selectively and unfairly prosecuted. You can't have it both ways. No. And number two is he's going under the guise of addiction. What addiction do you need to have to do a deal with a Romanian billionaire, to go to the Moscow mayor's wife, to go into China and meet with a billionaire and come out with millions of dollars? What type of crack do you use to not pay taxes ever? And then what kind of crack which must be supplied from somebody? All of a sudden, some producer comes out of Hollywood from nowhere and pays all your bills plus interest. Who was paying that producer? And what did you ever get to the bottom of what Joe Biden lied multiple times about having nothing to do with his son's overseas business dealings? You remember that? At the same time, we find out about him having dinner with his business partners, calling into an international business deal in Ukraine just to check on his son. This is the same pattern you use with Ukraine. I'm not going to give him HIMARS. I'm going to give him HIMARS. I'm not going to give him F-16s. I'm going to give him F-16s. I'm not going to give him ATACMS. I'm going to give him ATACMS. I'm not going to let him hit in Moscow. I let him hit in Moscow. He gets a pass all the time on this, and now all bets are off. Next time someone says he's the next George Washington, please remember some of this.
Well, the thing is that we all knew he was going to do it. Yeah. And I don't think that's really the issue here, is that he's pardoning his son. It's that he lied about it. And they expected us to believe that he was this noble guy and that he was going to restore order to the Department of Justice. Suddenly, the criminal justice system has unfairly targeted his son. You can't have it both ways, as Brian says. Either the criminal justice system is broken in totality, or they aren't. You can't say in this particular place. But I just got to say, though, you don't have to take our word for it. The federal judge that was going to oversee this sweetheart deal literally looked over to the prosecution and said, is there any precedent for a deal like this? They said no. Then they looked over to the defense, his own lawyers. They asked him, she says, is there any precedent for the deal? They said no. So if there's anything, they tried to give him special treatment in the criminal justice system.
Right, and you just brought up such a good point, because in that sweetheart deal, there was the extraordinary part, and this is why Judge Norica said, hey, is there a precedent for this? The deal said anything he did.
In perpetuity.
Anything he did then or in the future. So they got greedy. They wanted too much. And now we have clearly seen that they had this planned all along. Of course, I think Joe probably thought Hunter would skate on the charges initially, but then after he was convicted, he faced 25 years.
Can I ask y'all a question? Your dads, all of us had strong dads, right? Or have strong dads. My dad always told me, Ainsley, if you get arrested, don't call me. I'm not your first phone call. I'm leaving you in there. If you did something.
If you get arrested, call me. Okay? Call me. I ain't, nah. If you get arrested, you better call me. Call your father. Okay? There's no way I'll tell my daughter not to call me. Who are you going to call?
That's that bad, then you need to stay. I'm not saying he shouldn't pardon his son. Most, I guess, dads would do that. But his son had every opportunity. He grew up in a family of privilege. He grew up in a family where he had every opportunity, and he squandered it by not paying his taxes, by being addicted to crack cocaine. And so when you look at his story,
and
it's right? Many of us would have loved to have had, we did it by pulling up our bootstraps and doing it the hard way, by working really hard and getting to where we wanted to be. He had every opportunity that most sons don't have. And now his dad is pardoning him and saying, it's okay, he did it because of me, my influence.
His dad had superpowers, has superpowers for 50 more days, and he's doing what a lot of parents would do. They're bailing out their son if they can, even though he's acknowledged he broke the law, but then again, the Republicans are going to come after him.
The part that bothers me, though, is this question was asked multiple times to the president, to the White House press secretary, and they got so nasty with our correspondents when they asked, don't ask us this question, don't do it. Here's just a little bit of when the question was asked to the White House press secretary, who's not going to be doing any press conferences because the president is going to Africa. This is what she said before, though. Watch.
Any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Well, is there?
I just said no. I just answered. Go ahead.
Will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes. I'm extremely proud of my son, Hunter. I'm not going to do anything. I said I abide by the jury decision. I will do that, and I will not pardon.
Does the president have any intention of pardoning him?
We've been asked that question multiple times. Our answer stands, which is no.
President Biden says that he's not going to pardon his son, Hunter. Is he going to ask Donald Trump to do that?
I don't have anything else to share about that. I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole on this. I've been very clear. The president's been very clear when we've been asked this question.
They are such liars.
Yeah, they're such liars. I'm not even gonna cap. That was a big lie. Why would you say you would not pardon your son, bro? Come on. This is your son, your flesh and blood. This is family. What you mean you're not gonna pardon your son? So who are you gonna pardon? Strangers? Strangers? You're gonna pardon strangers. That's what you're gonna do? There's no way. My child would be the first person I'm gonna pardon. It is what it is, okay? Y'all can say what you want to say, however you want to say it. I will pardon my child, okay? You should not have said you wouldn't pardon your son. Why would you say that? As a father. Fathers come before, the role of a father comes before the role of a president. If you're the president of the United States, your role as a father comes first. It is just what it is. If you read the statement he put out, he said, as a father and a president. He didn't say a president first. So a father first. It is fatherhood first, bro. Whatever you want to say, fathers out there, if you can tell me that you're not gonna pardon your child, then okay, that's you.
All of them.
Well, the thing is, too,
Now reveal.
You can even back it up even further. Not only did he have his father and his name blocking for him, he initially started blocking for the FBI.
Yeah.
When that laptop would have blew up Hunter, his legal cases, international business dealings, his personal transgressions, his horrible pictures with hookers, and the love child that he denied having, still not paying child support for a period of time, had to fight, had to be sued in order to pay it. All these things are going on, and the FBI was blocking, holding it, which was going to lead to our story later on the need for a new FBI director.
I'm Steve Doocy.
Yeah, they messed up. They messed up. I was gonna say F up. Yeah, they messed up. They messed up big time. They messed up big time. There was no way I wasn't gonna pardon my son.
You're not going to believe it. We thought we had the show set, and then this happened last night. Fox News alert, President Biden's pardoning his son, Hunter, excusing any offenses the first son may have committed over the past decade.
Madeline Rivera is at the White House with the latest for us. Hey, Madeline.
Hi, guys. Good morning. Well, this is a big 180 for a president who has long said he will follow the rule of law. But the president says he changed his mind because he believes Hunter's charges were meant to break him politically. In a statement, the president says, in part, here's the truth. I believe in the justice system, but as I have wrestled with this, I also believe raw politics has infected this process, and it led to a miscarriage of justice. Hunter was supposed to have sentencing hearings on December 12th for his gun case and December 16th for his tax case. All of those now gone. But the president's pardon doesn't just cover these offenses. It covers any crime the first son may have committed between January 2014 to December 2024. And that time frame is notable given that Hunter joined the board of Burisma Holdings in 2014, and he has been scrutinized for his foreign business dealings. The president says he made this decision over the weekend while spending Thanksgiving holiday with his family. But NBC, which was the first to report this news, says the president had been talking about the possibility of pardoning Hunter with his close aides as far back as June when Hunter.
Okay, so this is for Lionel 247. Nobody's asking you if you're gonna pardon your son if you're a normal person. A normal person cannot pardon their son. I'm saying if you are the president of the United States, would you pardon your son? Yes or no? I would 1000% pardon my child. I don't care what nobody says. Okay. I'm gonna pardon my son, my daughter, my mom, my grandma, my stepdad, my friends. I'll pardon everybody, bro. Y'all wildin', man.
was convicted on those gun charges. As for whether we'll get any on-camera comments from the White House on this, there is no press briefing for the next few days with the president abroad for his long-awaited trip to Angola. Karine Jean-Pierre and National Security Communications Advisor John Kirby will gaggle on board Air Force One today, still that is off camera. And remember, the president held no news conferences when he had those international summits.
And look. My boy Lionel says 100% raise your kid right, and you wouldn't have to worry about it. Do you have kids, bro? Are you an adult? Have you ever made mistakes? Have you ever made any mistakes in your life? Do you wish for people to know your secret? You have secrets, bro. You have things that you've done that you're not proud of. Now imagine you are the son of a president that the news media always want to get something on you. And they do find that thing on you. And you're telling me you're not going to pardon your son. Man, I already pardoned my son the first day I got into office.
Last month in Peru and Brazil. Lauren, Steve, Ryan, and Ainsley, rather.
All right, Madeline, thank you very much.
You got it.
Maddie unfazed by the cold weather. I mean, she does the same
She's ready
at
for
60 as she does in
And
30
she ran to the White House.
Oh, really? That's fantastic. So we knew this was going to happen, but we just couldn't believe the audacious way it did happen. Number one, I think it took almost zero courage. You do it on a Sunday and then go to Angola and then take your press secretary with you. So no press conferences, just let the chips fall where they may. Pardoning your son, to me, is not shocking. Roger Clinton getting pardoned by Bill Clinton, not shocking. But never admitting that you were going to do it, saying definitively you wouldn't do it, and then going ahead and doing it, and then the letter that followed to explain what went into it is just full of holes and inconsistencies that I think leave him wide open and leave his party susceptible
Brian,
to further damage.
in that letter, he said, quote, "I have followed a simple principle, just tell the American people the truth. No, you lied to us so many times, but about this specifically, you said you were..."
That right there was the only issue I have with this whole thing. Because why would you say you wouldn't pardon your son? And why did you have to say all of that for years? You could have just said, I'm going to look into it and we'll talk about it some other time. Because as a father, you would pardon your child. I don't know, man. Y'all just going back and forth. This is what a sensible, normal, regular father would do. This is your child that you trained from birth, that you saw come out of his mom in the hospital. You washed the baby. You fed the baby. You saw the baby's first smile. That baby would always be a baby to you, even when they become men or women. Like, you would always see your son or your daughter as your baby. Okay, I don't care what y'all say, bro. I will pardon my son. That's all it is. The only issue is, why would you say you wouldn't pardon him? They kept asking you and you said, no, I'm not going to pardon my son. No. That was just BS, straight BS. And now he's going to have to face the consequences. The Democratic Party will face the consequences. Now it's even worse for them. I thought like Kamala made it worse, but now Joe has probably destroyed the Democratic Party with this decision. This was the right decision, just at the wrong time. At the wrong time. He could have done this a long time ago. He could have said he was going to do it, but now he's messed it up for 2028 presidential election for the Democratic Party and 2032 presidential election for the Democratic Party. Sorry, Joe. Thanks, Joe. We did it.
We're not going to pardon your son. You said it over and over and over. You said you didn't know anything about your son's his businesses. You never discuss it. Then there's video or pictures of you playing golf with his business associates. You said you didn't know anything about your brother with Burisma, but he lied about this, and I think he was always going to pardon. He just lied because he was running for president, and he didn't want that to hurt him and affect the election.
He decided over the weekend.
Yeah,
so
but listen to this. Here's why I think that he thought about it and he knew he was going to do this. The sentencing for Hunter is in a few days, December 12th. The sentencing for the California case is on December 16th. So you have the Delaware case and California case within the next few days. So I think he said, I've got to do this now. And he pardoned him for 10 years. January 1st, 2014, 4 months later, he started working for Burisma.
So, Ainsley, speaking of lies, the Daily Signal puts it this way, talking about some of the lies that have been said from the White House podium. It's transitory inflation. Afghanistan was a success. The border is secure. Robert Hur lied. Biden's fine. Those videos are cheap fakes. Biden had jet lag. Biden had a cold. Biden isn't going to be replaced. Biden isn't going to pardon Hunter. The great thing about this is that now it seems like the president of the United States agrees with Donald Trump that there's corruption within the FBI and the Department of Justice.
He said the exact opposite.
So maybe we can get something done about it. Now, finally, we're all on the same page now. So maybe we can get a new regime in to change this corruption that he says.
Well, and Brian, you brought up the fact that on the way out, Bill Clinton pardoned his half-brother, Roger, for cocaine. On the way out, Donald Trump pardoned his son-in-law, Jared's father, Charles. But what's unique about this case is both of those people had served time already. They'd already done their jail time. This is to avoid jail time because he has not been sentenced yet. And so this is just essentially a gigantic get-out-of-jail-free card. Axios says they've got to break down why Joe Biden did this now. And what it says is for years, well, this actually kind of makes sense. For years, Joe Biden has felt guilty because he became president and brought scrutiny upon Hunter Biden. And there were investigations and all that stuff. And so Biden and Biden's family believe that the attacks on Hunter ultimately were meant to push him into relapse and imperil Joe's.
You got to be kidding. You got to be.
Give me a break. He had more opportunities than most kids ever do.
I am simply explaining their rationale for doing it at this time. So in other words, Joe Biden felt bad that his presidency caused Hunter Biden to get investigated.
But is Axios saying that's their theory, or are they saying that's the Biden theory?
That's what I said. So Joe Biden and the family feel that Hunter, they believe that he was attacked. Yeah. They were attacking Hunter to push him into relapse and imperil Joe's presidency.
Everybody from all different sides. It's such nonsense when you have people from all different backgrounds that have had people that had disabilities when it comes to the drug addiction. No one's even talking about that. People are talking about the corruption and explain that to all the men that you put behind bars when you signed the crime bill, and now you want sympathy for your son. You had no problem locking up all these other men back in the day after you authored a bill. So spare me with the, this is because pushing him into relapse. No one even is talking about that.
And along the way to finding his international business dealing, we found hookers and crack.
Yeah.
But only thing people care about,
and he put that out,
is the Romanian billionaire, the Ukrainian Burisma deal, the Moscow mayor's wife, the millions coming out of China and the diamond rings. Those are the things that happen. By the way, this is the most luxurious crack addiction ever. With crack, usually your life goes down. The more crack he did, his life went up and millions came spiraling in.
The fact is, did he pass BS policies that locked a lot of men up? Yes, he did. But when it comes to family, all of that goes in the trash. I'm just being factual with you guys. I voted for Trump. Because I like his policy. I like his economy. I like the border. I like lower prices. I like his foreign policy stand. However, Trump would have done the same thing. You never know what your kids would do. You never know what your kids would do. You may say, my son is never going to do that because I'm there for them. I trained them properly. I told them not to do bad stuff. I know they're going to be good kids. You never know what your son is going to do or your daughter is going to do. But, hey, if you are the president of the United States, you're going to leave office knowing that your son or your daughter has the potential of going to prison. Y'all are just saying that because you are in your home and you work somewhere else or whatever. You know, maybe in this lifetime I may never become a president of the United States. But if you think in your heart you would never pardon your son, or you never pardon your daughter, you let them go to jail for real, huh? Man, y'all be wild. You think Trump is not gonna pardon uh what's his name? Donald Trump Jr. or Byron or Eric? You think Trump is gonna say, I'm a good guy, let him go to jail? Y'all saying let him go to jail now. Do you think Trump is gonna say let his son go to jail? Trump is gonna pardon his son too. This is family, bro. Y'all be overthinking this stuff. Like y'all be taking this stuff the wrong way, man. It's family first, bro. Like,
The fact is
relax.
he didn't pay taxes on it was an additional red flag.
Well, you know what, Brian, what you just detailed, those are things we know of. Essentially, this pardon, this unconditional pardon, excuses him from anything he did, and that includes the stuff we know about and the stuff we don't know about, ultimately. And earlier it was brought up that Joe has put his entire political party, the Democrats, in a pickle. Think about the Democrats. What do they do to Joe Biden? They got rid of him, running for president, and now I don't think he cares.
Well, he was. I think. I
It
think
is revenge, absolutely.
I think he was going to do it regardless. I mean, they just lied about it. Whether he became president or not, the son was not going to serve 1 day in jail, which is why the media should have been a king to what was going to happen. I mean, they asked the question, so I give them some credit for that, but they said he's an honest guy. This is a guy that would never do that. And by the way, the White House sold us two stories. They said that Hunter Biden was a successful businessman. And also that he was an addict as well. So the smartest man in the room that was also severely addicted to drug. You cannot have it both ways. Either he was the successful
Look. See that guy right there talking, yo. If he was the president of the United States and his son got convicted of any issue, that guy right there screaming on top of his lungs will pardon his son. And y'all type it right here. You will pardon your son. So sit your head down.
businessman that had all these connections, or he was addicted.
I think
Can't be both.
I think also he thinks that as a dad, maybe he's afraid to lose another son, and that's why he wants to take care of this son. That's more important to him than watching his son have consequences for breaking the law.
Look,
and also, I shouldn't be, but I am just floored at the just lie.
Yeah.
I'm floored that he told us over and over, I am not going to pardon him. So I thought, well, wait a minute. He's either going to, I don't think he's going to just let his son go to prison. So maybe he's assuming that Kamala will win. Maybe they have a deal. Kamala will pardon him in January. That way he can continue to say, I'm not going to pardon. But then you look at the sentencing. The sentencing is in a few days for Delaware and for California.
Just a coincidence.
It's right before that is when he decides to pardon.
It's just a coincidence, Ainsley. He was thinking about it over the weekend.
Over the weekend.
Yeah. You know what?
Planned this all along.
Honey, you know what? I can't have any more cranberry sauce. By the way, give me the paperwork. I'm going to pardon Hunter. And you might as well tell him.
Well, we knew it was coming because just before the pardon, Hunter Biden's attorneys put out a 52-page paper called The Political Prosecutions of Hunter Biden. So it's like, okay, that pops out. Next thing you know, his dad says, I feel guilty about Hunter getting dragged through the muck, and so I've done this.
This is what I don't get. Somebody said in the chat, you can't use your power to benefit your family. So what? I'm supposed to use my power to benefit strangers. Right. I see. So use my power to benefit strangers, but don't use my power to benefit my family. What? Does that even make any sense? Like, I am a common sense person, bro. Like, I love helping people. So I'm gonna love helping people, but I'm not gonna help my people first. Like, charity begins at home. Comprende?
Only political when it comes to Hunter Biden. Who knew that they were above reproach with everything else But when it comes to Hunter Biden, then suddenly they become political.
Well, when President Trump tries to pardon the J6ers, I think he's going to have a lot less pushback.
Right.
He's going to say, yeah, you know what?
And right now, I think, well, this is gonna happen anyway. Trump should use his power to free the J6 people. He has to do it because now it's like, man, this is what is going to happen anyway. He already said he was going to pardon them during the campaign trail. He said it when he was campaigning, and now he is the 47th president-elect. Okay? He's going to do it. The J6ers are going to come out fresh and fly. It is what it is, okay? You use your power to help your people. Not even like flesh and blood. Man,
that they suffered enough. They actually went to jail.
Well,
so
Brian,
in some cases,
it's not of if he wants it. He's definitely going to do it now. Yeah. He has all the political cover to do it right now. After this, no time, and these people have already served some time. You got a praying grandmother that was praying outside of the Capitol or right inside of the Capitol, and she's doing 10 years, I think. So, I mean, you can see the pardons coming.
Yeah, this is crazy. We have so much on this show.
And listen, Hunter had every opportunity under the sun. I read his ex-wife's book, Kathleen's book, and wow, I know it's just her side of the story, but what he put his family through and his children through and his ex-wife through is unbelievable.
And we saw that at the trial, and it was hugely embarrassing to all the Bidens, and this essentially puts that all to rest. Or does it?
Right. I would say this. One of the reasons Michelle Obama is not really tight with the Bidens
because of this
is because they were tight with Beau's family, his wife,
Yes.
and they saw the way they just kicked her to the curb.
Yeah.
She's not probably.
say what you want. Say what you want. I don't mess with Biden. I don't think he's a great president. I don't think he did good with the economy. I don't think he did good. I think he did worse on the border with Kamala Harris. I think his foreign policy game is whack. I think he's a whack president, 100%. However, this, 100% supported. I support you, bro. 100%.
Bret Baier joins us now on the phone. Bret, what is your reaction? Probably no surprise or shock, but nonetheless, what do you think?
Yeah, guys, I think this is not a surprise, but maybe the timing of it, coming today on Thanksgiving weekend Sunday, and how it's written up in this release by the White House. Obviously, you guys have already talked about how the White House has, for more than a year, said that he was not going to do this, ever do this. You saw the David Muir interview with ABC where he said he was never going to pardon his son Hunter, no matter what. And we've seen different iterations from Karine Jean-Pierre from the White House press briefing room the same way. I think internally a lot of people thought by the end of this term he was probably going to do it anyway. And so in that sense, it's not a surprise. I think to your point, the timing of it is, it's going to be a lot of reaction on Capitol Hill. You're already seeing Congressman Comer and others say that it was a lie that President Biden said he wouldn't pardon him, and expect the focus from Republicans to be on this as they get ready for their own battles with nominations that President-elect Trump has put forward.
So, Bret, as we're getting ready to start watching some of these confirmation hearings in the Senate, does this amp up the partisanship, or does it temper it down, or does it have no impact whatsoever on what's already going to be pretty contentious hearings coming up?
No, I think it's going to amp it up, and I think that Republicans will use this as ammo against Democrats who are going after various nominees, and I think that there'll be a lot of pointing back to all that President Biden has said, that he wasn't going to do this, and here he is. And there'll be a lot of talk about lawfare and the use of that against President-elect Trump all throughout this time. There were some people in certain circles that said if Biden didn't pardon Hunter, that maybe when President Trump was inaugurated, that maybe he would, and that that actually was being tossed around as a possibility. But obviously that's all to the wayside now as President Biden has made this decision, and he's made it early, well before he leaves office on January 20th.
I was trying to remember, and I couldn't come to mind right away, the last time a family member, and I bet you have that's something you might have on the top of your head, the last time a family member had to be pardoned by a president.
I don't have that, and I
okay,
think
I feel a little bit better
that,
about that.
yeah. I mean, don't feel bad because it's not on the top of my head, and I think we'll have to look back and see where exactly that might.
I mean, we've had some pretty
stand.
good family members, but maybe not quite this level of family members. This brings it to a new level.
That's right. And listen, think about how much coverage we've had on the Hunter Biden saga and all elements of it. Not
Like I told you guys, I think Biden this is my opinion, okay? I think it's a whack president. This is just it, okay? Yeah, say whatever you want to say. You may like Joe Biden, that's your opinion, but I think he is whack compared to the legend, the Don, the 45th, and now the 47th president-elect, President Trump. However, when it comes to pardoning his son, I 1000% support him. That's my stand. No matter what you say, no matter who you are, no matter what you think, I can never change my mind when it comes to pardoning his son. This is his son, for Christ's sake.
just the gun charge, which he goes into, President Biden, in this release pretty specifically about all of that, but then, doesn't talk a lot about the taxes, which also are covered in this 10-year going back to, how far this goes back as far as a pardon goes. And perhaps those are more serious of the charges that we haven't really gotten to.
Well, and the federal tax evasion charges he actually pled guilty to. The question is whether he would have really served time. That's something the president is saying would not be likely. But nonetheless, I mean, the federal tax evasion charges is a serious thing. So he gets away with all of it. And there's going to be no recourse. My question is, will there ever be answers to the many questions as to the president's knowledge of Hunter Biden's dealings, both internationally, the federal tax charges, all of it? How much did the president know? Will we ever know?
Listen, we've gone down this road and obviously confronted President Biden. Peter Doocy did it numerous times about whether he was on the speakerphone, whether he knew about the businesses, and there was always this denial. But much of what we saw that came out from that laptop, which obviously was confirmed to be accurate, suggested much more knowledge than he ever let on. I don't think that Republicans are going to spend a lot of time in committees after the inauguration going backwards to Biden. I could be wrong, but I think that they've got a lot of big things to do on the Trump agenda.
Brett, Lisa Booth here. I was going to ask a question a little bit further about that with the pardon being outside of the scope of just the tax charges and the gun charges specifically. Does this insulate Joe Biden from potentially some of those roads leading to him? I mean, we know that IRS agents, whistleblowers have stepped forward saying that they were previously thwarted from following those roads that could potentially get to Joe Biden. So does this sort of broad pardon insulate and protect Joe Biden? Maybe.
That's a great point. And, I think we'll have to look at that. I agree. It's pretty sweeping. If you look at the entire pardon itself and how it's written. And, this is a unique thing in that it is the son of a president. But it is something that Republicans had been looking at for many months.
Absolutely. President Biden, obviously, as you just brought up, had said that he was never going to pardon his son. Now he's being called out as a liar. He actually did say that he would respect the jury's outcome no matter what it is, and that he said that he would not pardon Hunter. That's back in June. Let's listen to that.
As we sit here in Normandy, your son Hunter is on trial, and I know that you cannot speak about an ongoing federal prosecution. But let me ask you, will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
I mean, did he have any choice to answer any differently there, Brett? I mean, honestly.
in the middle of an election.
No.
At that point, he's still running. I think probably that's how he was going to answer it. But, a little bit later down the road, the White House briefing, the press corps had really asked Karine Jean-Pierre numerous ways, numerous times, including our own correspondents in the room, whether that was going to change 6 months down the road. And it was pretty definitive. It was really cut and dry. It was not going to happen, was never going to happen, is never going to happen. And I think, listen, I think people who looked at this politically thought it was going to happen, period, the end. Whether it was going to be President Biden in the final days, this is a little bit earlier than people expected.
I think he believed that a re-election would happen, and that's what he was banking on. And I believe that is the reason why he had to stick to that answer, because he actually didn't think that there was any chance that he would be booted out of office by former President Trump, or that Kamala Harris would in fact take his seat. I mean, things were very different if you think about it in June, because remember the month of July and what went down in July. That's when, Biden was out, Kamala Harris was in, she started campaigning. He would have never seen what was to come.
Well, and to that point, Julie, Brett, if you're Joe Biden, what do you have to lose at this point, right? Your party kicks you out. He drops out via X. He's not running for re-election. He's out. His reputation's tarnished. So is his administration. So at this point, Brett, what does he have to lose?
No, and there's not a lot of political downside for this move for Democrats. Again, I think on Capitol Hill, people expected this. And so it's kind of baked in the cake as far as the politics. We'll hear about the sound and fury for a couple of days, I think, in reaction. And it may, in fact, take some of the oxygen out of the.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. Double tap your screen and let's get the likes up. Okay. So this is very good for Trump, though. This is absolutely good for Trump, because now Trump can say, I told you guys, the justice system is not fair. He can say that now. He's been saying it, but now it's even going to be on another level. The justice system is not fair. It's a two-tier justice system. So now this is good for him. And Trump, he's never going to let this go. He's going to say, I told you guys, he pardoned his son. So there you have it. This is good for Trump. And I like this because this is going to help Trump too. So J6ers, you better be ready to come home, because it's going to happen. It's going to happen, and much more. And this has opened the door for a lot of pardoning. This has opened the door for a lot of people to get pardoned.
The room for some of the focus on some of the president-elect's nominees. But get ready, because once we get to January 6th and that process starts, it'll be full court press when it comes to politics.
So, Brett, I knew that there was a bell ringing in the back of my mind. It was Bill Clinton, in fact, who pardoned his half-brother Roger on cocaine charges. So
there you go.
I knew it was sometime in our lifetime, but I couldn't remember which one.
Did we ever find out who brought cocaine to the White House?
Brett, have you gotten to the bottom of that?
Maybe now we can uncover that one. Yeah, but I wonder if this frees up Hunter to now, go into the pardon business. This is what Roger Clinton was doing, running around lobbying for pardons and collecting cash in the process. But I think, what Brett just said, we're moving on. That's what Shannon said, that the news cycle, it keeps moving on. So this happened on a Sunday. My take is that if I were a Democrat, I would not be happy about this, because they want to be talking about the president's appointments. They don't want to be talking about this kind of thing. So is this another example of Joe Biden not playing ball with the Democrats? During the campaign, he seemed to be kind of going off on his own, and people said, you know what? It's maybe because they took him out. He wasn't happy with Nancy Pelosi. He wasn't happy with Kamala and the other Democrats. So was this Joe Biden going rogue? Do you think he talked to Democrats about this? Or Brett, is this a surprise to people like Nancy Pelosi?
I think it's pretty it was pretty known that it was going to happen, I think. Not that he had any advance briefing of the Democrats before this comes out, but I think that there was a sense that President Biden was going to do this. And it'll be interesting to see the TikTok of who he told this was going to happen. Listen, this is a Sunday night, again, at the end of a holiday weekend. And, this comes up ahead of a probably a busy news week as we get ready to full court press towards January.
Brett, what do you think the next White House press secretary briefing is going to look like? I would assume that Karine Jean-Pierre has some explaining to do.
Yeah, I think there'll be some tough questions, and there'll be a lot of quoting back to what they've asked her before. And she'll have to say this was the president's decision. And I bet we will go back to that briefing book many times about how to read that the right way.
I assume as much.
It is kind of interesting, though, that, talking about what you're saying, Tom, where it is off script for them. They want to be talking about how outrageous these nominees are and what does Joe Biden do, but he steps in and he says, oh, yeah, not only am I going to change the subject away from how outrageous some of these nominees are, but I agree with Donald Trump that the DOJ has been weaponized.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I've been bombarded, Charlie, since our conversation with all of these experts about President Clinton issuing this pardon for his half-brother, Roger Clinton, after he served a year in prison for pleading guilty to cocaine distribution charges. So thank God you went back to that fact.
Yeah, I have too. I just didn't want
my phone was blowing up.
I didn't want to give any of them the satisfaction of realizing that they actually did remind me.
Although, you know what's so fitting? Joe Biden leaving office with another massive whopper. Right? Like, that's just so fitting for Joe Biden, someone who's told every lie under the sun throughout his entire political career, going out with this massive lie, having previously said, I'm not going to pardon Hunter Biden. And now that is exactly what he's doing.
I don't think anybody... Go ahead, Brett.
The Clinton pardon was one of 140 that Clinton issued on his last day in office, and the only presidential family pardon up until this point today for Hunter Biden. So if it's 140, we could have a lot of pardons yet to come.
Well, that's it. It's a missed opportunity because you could issue 140 if you were Joe Biden, and we wouldn't be talking about 139 of them. Now we're going to be scrutinizing all of his pardons going forward. My take would be do it on the way out the door. Hunter Biden's going to be the only news, and then anybody else is going to go under the radar. Am I right?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. But Brett, what you mentioned earlier is that, this incoming administration has a lot of work that they want to get done, and they're not going to really bother with Biden and his dealings and getting answers from President Biden, which is an interesting point considering when the Biden administration took over, they basically spent the last 4 years hammering Trump, trying to bring him up on criminal charges, invading his home in Mar-a-Lago. I mean, they did not give up. They did not let up. You're saying the Republicans are going to take the higher road and they're going to actually focus on getting things done.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of the Trump agenda that they want to push forward, and there's a lot of moving parts to try to do that. I mean, first and foremost is getting all the people he wants into their positions. I'm not saying that there's not going to be any retrospective look back, especially when it comes to the FBI and the DOJ in particular, and maybe looking into who knew what when about how all of that went down. But as far as relitigating Hunter Biden and the ties to President Biden, I'm not sure they're going to spend that much time going down that road.
Do you think this influences the Senate confirmation hearings whatsoever when it comes to Kash Patel? Just out of curiosity.
That's a great question. I think in recent days there have been more supporters of Kash Patel who've come out, and our own Trey Gowdy has spoken highly of Kash Patel, and others have come out and said that they think he can be a change agent. So I would expect the thing to turn on some of the media stories that you've seen of the people that are supporting him. So does this affect that? I don't know. It does take some of the oxygen for a couple of days where this will be the focus.
But see, can you put me down? I don't know if I want to take the higher road on this because because this all speaks to the weaponization of government, which gets to why Kash Patel was nominated in the first place for the FBI with the Department of Justice with accusations that Merrick Garland inserted himself in the process to protect Hunter Biden, right? That is an unequal application of the law, which we have seen consistently throughout the Biden administration and all of this, the weaponization directed at Donald Trump while Hunter Biden continues to, one, get a pardon, to get a sweetheart deal, to, not have the Burisma money being held against him and being part of those tax charges as well. So, I don't know if I want to take the higher road, Charlie.
Yeah, I would not be surprised, but I also
Trump better take the higher road, because if he doesn't take the higher road, you're gonna waste so much time doing this instead of actually working for the American people. These people are like, they're not worth your time. Okay, this whole issue isn't worth your time. He's pardoned his son. I support the pardon, even though I voted for Trump. However, the economy needs Trump's total focus. He needs to focus more on the foreign policies, on the border, so many things. Like he cannot be wasting time on this right here. This isn't what he needs to focus on.
think that Donald Trump has, his view of this election is that it's a starting point, and he has big things that he wants to get done. And I think that in as much as he can use all of this as a cudgel to crack open DOJ and the FBI and get things done there, I think he will, I think a lot of his supporters in Congress will go after that. But I think that they have really big other fish to fry that are more policy oriented, and they're going to be off to the races on that stuff.
But you can do both, and then also, but also one of those big policy initiatives is reforming, taking a look at the Department of Justice, reforming the FBI. And so I do think that this goes hand in hand with those goals that you just laid out, the big ambitions of Donald Trump for this next administration as well.
Should we let Brett get back to his cold turkey sandwiches?
Brett, do you want to keep hanging out with us?
No, he's going to get off. I'm going to run, but I'll leave you with this.
Yeah,
this
please
is
do.
really sweeping, and it is sweeping. So it's not only for the guns and the gun and taxes convictions, but it also really amounts to any crime he might have committed in the last decade. So if you do have a Congress that looks back or was going down a different road, this is pretty broad and sweeping, and we're going to hear a lot about it from Capitol Hill starting tomorrow.
Bret Baier, thank you so much for joining us on a Sunday. Get back to your life, and I know what the lead will be on your show tomorrow. I would imagine.
Man, it is what it is. I will say it, okay? You guys may not want to say it. You're going to say you're not going to pardon your child. I am going to pardon my child. So I have nothing against Joe for pardoning his son, because that's what a rational, sensible father, most fathers with senses, will do it. Okay, it is just what it is. You can say, I'm not going to do it. I want to set the premise. If he does the crime, he does the time. Okay. Now, if you are the president of the United States and you have the power to get your child out, Trump will have done the same thing. Y'all can say what you want to say. He would have done the same thing, okay? Now, is Joe Biden a great president? No. I think he messed everything up from 2020 to 2024. He's absolutely not a good president, in my opinion, But this, when it comes to your child, when it comes to family, bro, especially your child, man, that's not even a conversation.
CNN has learned President Biden will pardon his son Hunter Biden. CNN Chief National Affairs Correspondent Jeff Zeleny, I believe, is with us. Jeff, can you hear me?
And Jessica, yes.
Okay, what are you learning?
Look, we are just getting a statement from President Joe Biden. He's saying that today he signed a pardon for my son Hunter, and he goes through the reasoning why. Of course, Hunter is facing a sentencing later this month, but this is really a monumental moment for President Biden. He said several months ago in June, when he was still seeking a re-election, that he would not pardon Hunter Biden, but now we are learning he is. And let's just read through this statement quickly together. He said, today I signed a pardon for my son Hunter. From the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision-making, and I kept my word, even as I watched my son being selectively and unfairly prosecuted. So this is a fairly long statement, about 4 or 5 paragraphs from President Biden, but really going through why he is making this decision. He also goes on to say this. He said, no reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out because he is my son, and that is wrong. He goes on to say there's been an effort to break Hunter, who has been 5.5 years sober, even in the face of unrelenting attacks and selective prosecution. So, of course, Jessica, let's take a step back. You obviously covered the Biden campaign along with me, and this is something that Hunter Biden has been dealing with. This was a a tax case, a gun case. He went through his trial in Delaware. There was another case in Los Angeles. But this is really the culmination of President Biden really making the decision tonight to sign a pardon for his son Hunter, not just a commutation of a possible sentence, but a pardon, which certainly will be part of President Biden's legacy going forward.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And as I'm reading this along with you, Jeff, I think one part at the very end is particularly striking, which is where he says, I have followed a simple principle. Just tell the American people the truth. They'll be fair-minded. And here's the truth. I believe in the justice system. But as I have wrestled with this, I also believe raw politics has infected this process, and it led to a miscarriage of justice. And once I made this decision this weekend, there was no sense in delaying it further. I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision. It is interesting to also hear him saying, essentially, that the justice system was politicized, which is something we've heard from Republicans and Donald Trump as well.
We certainly have.
CNN is weak. They are weak. Because everybody is going towards what the 45th, now the 47th president-elect has always spoken about, that the justice system is flawed. It is flawed, okay? It is flawed. Now, the only thing I have to say concerning this pardon is, why did you say you weren't gonna pardon your son? You said you were not gonna pardon your son. Why would you even say that? Like, I would never say that. I would just be like, you know what? I'll tell you in future, okay? I don't know what I'm gonna do now. But he repeatedly said he wasn't gonna pardon his son. I mean, what father wouldn't pardon their son? This is the son that you bathed, you fed, you changed his diaper, you watched him grow, you took him to his first soccer game. You like, man, y'all, like, if y'all keep saying you're not gonna pardon your son, you know that's cap. You know that's cap, bro. You behind your computer type and say, no, I'm not gonna pardon my son. That's a lie. You know you're gonna pardon your son.
And important to note that President Biden spent really the weekend with his son Hunter and the rest of the family in Nantucket, where they always do for Thanksgiving. And this is a striking, really, ending to this Thanksgiving holiday. And with this statement from the White House we're seeing tonight, it is a official document calling for a full and unconditional pardon for all crimes and punishments facing Robert Hunter Biden. So, but Jessica, the sentence that you read is so poignant. I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this.
Oh, yeah. I just saw my hat. Dad gang, bro. Dad gang. We will pardon our children. I don't care what you say, okay? I'm gonna pardon my daughter. I'm gonna pardon my son. Yeah. I'll do it. I'll do it. You conservatives, Republicans, thank God I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent, okay? I wanted to be a Republican after I voted for Trump. However, if y'all keep going to the right, I'm just gonna stay independent, okay? Because look, this is just common sense. He pardoned his son. So what? He's gonna pardon strangers, but not pardon his son? Because it's noble? Oh, I'm a noble guy. Man.
Decision. We will see, of course, in the coming weeks and months and years if Americans do understand that, but there is no doubt that this is part of the legacy of President Biden's one term in office. Certainly something he did not want. He hoped to run for re-election. He obviously stepped away from that months ago, but clearly there was pressure inside the family. We were told really in recent weeks that Dr. Jill Biden, First Lady Jill Biden, was very supportive of the president doing something like this. The president was not sure, but we clearly have seen now he has come to this decision to pardon his son Hunter.
Yeah, and Jeff, of course, we don't have to remind people how close-knit this family is, and that Hunter is his only surviving son, that they are, of course, very, very close, and we've heard many stories about the last several years.
Somebody said, don't be, what did you say? I can't even find a comment. Don't be mad when Trump pardons J6ers. He should. He should. Okay, those are his supporters. He should pardon them. What do you think? He's not going to pardon them? He will pardon them. And I have nothing against that because those are his people. Now, think about it. People want him to pardon the J6ers. So you think Trump will pardon the J6ers, but if his son, this is his son, guys, was convicted of whatever, you think Trump is not going to pardon his son because he's a great president since George Washington? Yeah, chill.
Here's how they talk daily and many times a day. Stick with us, Jeff. I want to go to our senior justice correspondent, Evan Perez, who is back with us. Evan, what are you hearing from sources as we're getting this news tonight that President Biden has granted this pardon to his son, Hunter Biden?
Well, certainly, Jessica, this is something that a lot of us were anticipating. We were waiting for it, even despite the fact that the president has said repeatedly that he was not planning to give his son a pardon, would not commute his sentences. Keep in mind that he was due to be sentenced in the Los Angeles case dealing with his tax problems. That was coming in the next couple of weeks, and so all of this is coming to a head, and so we've been watching and seeing what the president of the United States would do. I think, as you and Jeff were just talking about, I think we'll see what the public, the American public, arrives at. But I think it's really remarkable to sort of step back and just read some of what President Biden is saying in here. Keep in mind, he took office in 2021, promising to sort of restore the institutions and try to restore faith in those institutions, including the system of justice, obviously, the Justice Department. Those are among the big priorities with him. That's why he chose Merrick Garland, a former judge, to be Attorney General. And then if you look now where we are, what the President of the United States is saying is that essentially there are problems, there are political problems with the prosecutions that are being brought by his own Justice Department. And, I think that's going to be a very, very tough pill for people to swallow on this issue, because obviously it is a thing that we keep hearing from Donald Trump, and it's
This right here has just helped the Republican Party for 2028 and 2032. I predicted like weeks ago saying the Democratic Party may never win a presidential election in the next 4 to 8 years. 4 to 8 years. With this right here, this may have just solidified the whole thing, because Joe has just made it clear that they're not really the kind of party the voters expect them to be or think they are, because they always say they believe in the system, they believe in the Justice Department, they believe in all that stuff. Let the law take course. Trump doesn't support when he loses, but he supports when he wins. So now it's like, well, you don't support when you lose, and you support when you win, and you use your power to actually win. So it is what it is. It's the same thing, bro. It's been the same way for years. So this is good for the Republican Party. Even better. So now we can see JD Tulsi Gabbard in 2028, or see JD Vivek, or I don't know, Ron DeSantis, RFK, or whatever. But I do know for the presidential election 2028, a Republican is still going to win, because I know for a fact that Trump, this 2024 to 2028, he's going to make sure the border is secured, the foreign policy is well done, like peace, okay, like we had in 2016 to 2020, peace around the world, peace through strength. The economy is definitely going to bounce back. You're seeing what crypto is doing right now. What else? Like, everything is gonna look better than it is right now. Okay? Mortgage rate is all the way up right now. I'm sure it's gonna bring that down too. So it's a lot of stuff that this guy will do and can do that will help the Republican Party for 2028 and 2032. So he shouldn't focus on all this stuff. Now, the Department of Government Efficiency, which is DOGE, which is Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, those two are going to make sure that all of this government agency, government bodies like the Department of Education, IRS, the Pentagon. I mean, look at the Pentagon. The Pentagon failed their audit for 7 times. The Department of Education failed audits for 3 times. So we do need a Department of Government Efficiency to kind of like, how would I put it now? To check on these government bodies and see where they're spending their money and make sure they are efficient. Okay? To make sure they're efficient, because you can't be spending money and then you can't pass an audit. Even IRS agents didn't pass the audit. You can't even make this up. This is like out of whack. Okay? This is just not right. Okay? We do need a legend like Trump back. But this decision by President Biden to pardon his son, I support him 1000%.
The thing that animates the Trump team over the next 4 years, you're already hearing from them that they want to destroy some of those institutions that they believe are stacked against them. And so to see President Biden sort of go to the same territory is kind of a remarkable turn to watch.
And then, Evan, just legally help people understand and just remind them this full pardon. What does that effectively mean? Again, that covers, as I understand it, all of the charges against him.
Right. As I understand and as I read this, it goes to all of the crimes and that he has now been convicted of. He was convicted of gun charges, gun-related charges in Delaware over the summer. I was there for that trial, and I also was in Los Angeles for the tax trial. And, you know, those things were both, just before it was going to trial, obviously, he ended up having a plea. But this would take care of all of those. Republicans have said, by the way, Jessica, that they want to take another look at Hunter Biden when Donald Trump takes office in January. So we'll see whether they can come up with something new that they can pursue Joe and Hunter Biden over. But for now, what this means is those charges that the special counsel David Weiss has pursued against Hunter Biden, which are gun charges in Delaware, as well as his tax charges in Los Angeles, both of those get wiped away clean.
All right, Evan Perez, stay with us. I want to go now to Isaac Dovere, who is somebody who has covered Joe Biden, who has interviewed him. And Isaac, I first want to play a clip that we have of what Biden said about potentially pardoning his son earlier this year, and then we'll come back to you. So let's play that clip.
Let me ask you, will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
You have.
And so, obviously, I think that's when he was running for re-election, and the political environment was very different for him. You, as someone who has covered him for years, walk us through kind of his thought process, how he thinks about these things. We know, per our reporting, that this was happening a lot of it over the weekend. But tell us more about kind of how you think he arrived at this decision.
Yeah, this is something that has been a great pain to Joe Biden for many years and was weighing on him as he decided whether to run for re-election and then was deciding whether to stay in the race earlier in the year. He believes that Hunter Biden was being prosecuted for these crimes because he put the spotlight on the Biden family by running for president. He put the spotlight on his son. He believes that there are things that Hunter has dealt with, and in some ways, some of the issues that he's had over the years that Biden wasn't there in the same way that he might have been as a father, that some of the pressures that came on him from being in the limelight because of who his father was. And so Joe Biden has struggled with this, but look, there's really no disputing the change in position here from the clip you played to the decision that's been made tonight.
It is what it is. He did what he had to do for his child. Don't forget that. He did it for his child. Is he a good person? Is Joe Biden a good person? I don't know him personally, but is he a good president? Absolutely not. Okay, absolutely not. He is not a good president. However, when it comes to your child, man, I'm not even gonna fault you for that. I'm not even gonna fault you for that, bro. Do what you gotta do. This is your son, okay? And everybody needs to do what they gotta do for their children. If we all do what we have to do for our kids, then we would have a better life. This world would be a better world. But you guys don't want to do what you have to do for your children, and that's why the world ain't the way it is. Like, y'all chill, man. Take care of your kids.
The Biden Justice Department has been politicized. That's the message this morning from not just Donald Trump, but from President Joe Biden himself. The president issuing a full and unconditional pardon to his son Hunter after repeatedly insisting in public that he wouldn't do it. And to defend his decision, the president adopted an argument that could have come straight out of Donald Trump's playbook. Blame your political opponents and claim unfair persecution. President Biden said this, quote, "The charges in his cases came about only after several of my political opponents in Congress instigated them to attack me and oppose my election." The president adding, quote, "No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son. And that is wrong," end quote. President Biden pardoning his son not just for the gun crimes for which he was convicted and not just for the tax crimes for which he pled guilty. Instead, Biden gave his son an extraordinarily sweeping pardon for any and all crimes he committed, may have committed, or even merely been involved in at any point in the last 10 years. That broad language, unlike any in recent history and reminiscent only of President Gerald Ford's pardon of Richard Nixon for, quote, all offenses against the United States, end quote, that the former president had or may have committed during his entire presidency. Trying to explain his decision to Americans, President Biden made a personal appeal. He said this, quote, "I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision," he said last night. Understand? Americans might, though they'll have to be forgiven for thinking that all of this was off the table.
Is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Well, is there,
I just said no. I just answered.
When would the president pardon or commute his son if he's convicted?
So I've answered this question before. It was asked of me not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was very clear, and I said no.
You said before that the president would not pardon his son. Is that still the case?
Nothing has changed. That is still the case.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes. I said I abide by the jury decision. I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
I could speak for the president, and he said he would not pardon his son.
Does the president have any intention of pardoning him?
We've been asked that question multiple times. Our answer stands, which is no.
Well, it stood until last night. Joining us now, Saleha Mohsin, senior Washington correspondent for Bloomberg, Isaac Duvera, CNN senior reporter, Megan Hayes, former director of national security for the Biden White House,
of course,
and Brad Todd, Republican strategist and CNN political commentator. Welcome to all of you. Megan Hayes, look, many of our viewers have gotten to know you, but you really do know this family. You worked inside this White House for a very long time. Can you help us understand how they got to this decision? Because I have to say, I've talked to some people who thought the president wouldn't get there because he was concerned about his legacy. Obviously, something really changed.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I didn't actually think he'd get there till much later in the last couple months of his term. But I do think with some of the nominations that Trump has put up, I think it probably caused a little bit of worry for him. But also, I think people have to remember the president has lost 2 children already, and he does not need to lose another one to more political,
Even CNN is dumbfounded. They're like, yo, we know he said this, but we don't know what this. He's lost 2 kids already. Think he's lost 2 kids already, and you want him to now pardon his son? Come on, man. Y'all need to relax. Relax. Stop taking these political issues to your head and not really thinking logically. He's lost 2 children, and you don't want him to pardon his son? Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on. Come on, man. Y'all, come on. I know you don't like him. I know you're Republicans. I know you don't. Yeah, yeah. But come on, I mean, Jesus.
Witch hunts that the president's calling them. He worries about Hunter going to jail. There's a lot of things wrapped up in this, but I think at the end of the day, the president made a decision as a father to keep his son out of jail and out of harm's way moving forward.
Just to pick up on something you said at the top of your answer, you think the selection, for example, of Kash Patel played into this decision?
I think that some of these nominations that Trump has been putting forward and leaving this in the hands of other folks, I think is worrisome to the president. I mean, President Trump and Kash Patel have said they're going to go after their political enemies. They're going after retribution. I think that Hunter Biden has been seen as the person that they've gone after many times, and I don't think the president's going to leave that to chance when he leaves office. He, again, does not want to lose another son. He has lost 2 children already, and he does not want this to go on any further once he leaves office.
Isaac Dovere, what's your reporting kind of behind the scenes on how this came to be, but also, I mean, we have seen some Democratic reaction already criticizing the president for this. I mean, we saw a tweet from the Colorado governor, a Democrat, Jared Polis, saying it's bad precedent that could be abused by later presidents. Congressman Greg Stanton said, I respect President Biden, but I think he got this one wrong. And then Joe Walsh, who is a former congressman, Republican congressman who's become a Trump critic, he was on MSNBC. He put it this way. Let's play it because it's kind of a succinct way to look at it. Take a look.
So the next time any of us complain about anything Trump does, this pardon is just deflating. Nobody's above the law, we've been screaming. Well, Joe Biden just made clear his son Hunter is above the law.
I told y'all this was good for the Republican Party. I told y'all this was really good. This is juicy news for the Republican Party because this is going to help them in 2028 and 2032. Okay, so relax. This is good. Do I support the pardon? Yes. Is this good for the Republican Party? Absolutely. Is this bad for the Democratic Party? Yes, it is bad because now everything you've been saying you stood for has been scam. Okay, it's been a lie. It's been BS. You've been lying to the American public, and now they see it because the president has always said he wasn't going to pardon his son, and now he just pardoned his son. However, I support the pardon. I am 1,000% support the pardon.
Donald Trump lies every time he opens his mouth, we've been screaming. Joe Biden repeatedly lied about this. The politicization of the justice system. Donald Trump and his people have been screaming.
Well,
That's exactly.
Oh, God. I told you this was good. This is juicy news for the Republican Party. Joe Biden has been saying he wasn't going to pardon his son. Guess what? He just pardoned his son. This is good, guys. Y'all need to celebrate. Y'all, let's celebrate, man. This is the celebration news.
Exactly what Biden said here.
Does he have a point? And what are you hearing from other Democrats?
This is the kind of thing that does breed cynicism in people. And it's that cynicism that in part Donald Trump plays off of in making the moves that he does when he says, look, it's all rigged against everybody. The Justice Department is politicized, right? And now Joe Biden has said that. His Justice Department under his administration was what was pursuing these cases, was what had gotten the guilty verdict in the gun case, and we were waiting for the sentencing in this tax case. That's an issue for Joe Biden to face now when he has put himself forward not just as an opposition to Trump, but as someone who is standing on principle and on norms and on keeping in that way. I do think, though, it's important we can hold multiple thoughts in our heads at the same time, right? That Donald Trump will perhaps use this, and certainly allies will use this as justification or something to point to when he does things, whether it's pardoning people who were involved in the January 6th riot or other things. But it's not like Donald Trump wasn't going to do some of those things anyway, right? And so, but it does muddy all the waters of people who wanted to see Biden, if nothing else, as somebody who was standing up for all.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy, Genesis. Thank you one more time. Double tap your screen to give this video a like. Let's get the likes up, guys. I see people in the chat saying that he didn't pardon his son, he pardoned himself. In the real world, do you think Joe Biden is going to get convicted of any crime? Like, do you think he's actually going to go to jail? Is that what you're thinking? That Joe Biden, a former vice president of the United States, the current president of the United States, is going to go to jail for some supposed crime and he's scared he's going to get convicted? Y'all watch too many movies, bro. Too many movies. Joe Biden isn't going to go anywhere, even if he didn't pardon his son. But he did it for his son's legacy, bro. Y'all need to chill.
All of these ideals that he was talking about for the last bunch of years.
Yeah, fair. Although we should also acknowledge, Saleha, that this is not the first president to pardon someone who he is related to in some way, including, I mean, with Donald Trump, it was an in-law, but someone in his family nonetheless.
And in-law, Charles Kushner, Jared's father, who he has just nominated to be his ambassador to France.
And it's the same thing with saying, like, when Trump was going through all of these cases and trials, and when he was convicted of 34 felonies or whatever, I was telling people, do you think Trump is going to go to jail? I'm like, y'all dream too much. Yeah, I had a conversation with some Democrats, and they were like, yeah, he's going to go to jail. I'm like, Trump is never going to jail. What are you thinking? You think this is your brother-in-law that lives in Chicago? This is a former president. This is Trump. This is a billionaire who has built wealth, who has built connection, who has built influence. And you're going to take that kind of person to jail? Y'all, too many movies going down in your head. Too many movies. Trump was never going to jail in the first place. He got all of those trials, got all of this stuff. They just wanted money. They wanted to take his time. They wanted to wear him down. They wanted to make him tired. They wanted to drain him of his energy. They wanted his influence to be tarnished, his name to be tarnished. They wanted to drag him through the mud. They knew he was never going to go to jail. Jail wasn't even in the conversation. They may have been saying, we're going to take him to jail, but there was no way. Everybody knew. Every logical, sensible adult knew Trump was never going to jail. He was never going to go to jail. They just wanted his money, his time, his energy, and they wanted to mess up his legacy. But it turned out to be great for him. So the same thing with President Joe. You think Joe is going to go to jail?
I would have to agree that there is a little bit of a precedent being set that now when Democrats are sort of trying to figure out where do they go from here after having lost so badly in the presidential elections and down ballot races, they're trying to rebuild the party and they're left with an aged president leaving, former head of the Democratic Party after being president, and now he's done this. It's going to be really hard in the next 2 years as Democrats are trying to position themselves heading into midterms to also serve as bulwarks against some of Trump's plans, especially now that we've heard about his FBI nomination.
Brad Todd, you and I have we saw each other on Sunday. We were talking about kind of the ways in which, Republicans obviously feel like the Department of Justice has been weaponized against them in political ways. Do you buy? I mean, Joe Biden is basically saying, look, he would never have been prosecuted if he wasn't my son, and that this is political as well. Do you buy that?
There's no question. A lot of Justice Department prosecutions are a result of the fact that the DOJ decides they can get press out of them. They are sensitive to media pressure. They're sensitive to political pressure. Joe Biden and Donald Trump are now saying the same thing. And I think that makes the case for why the DOJ has to be cleaned up. New ethos of operation has to happen there. But I think one thing about this pardon that's striking to me is that it's not for the gun and the tax charge. This is for everything he did in the last 11 years. Coincidentally, that's when he went on the board of Burisma, the Ukrainian gas company. I think that there's going to be a lot more investigation into what Hunter Biden's dealings were with Burisma. And now that he's been pardoned, he doesn't need the Fifth Amendment. He can tell us everything. He can tell us everything about his co-conspirators. He can tell us everything about other people who did business with him. A lot more is now on the table. And so I think Joe Biden, in overreaching here with an 11-year pardon, he may have opened more fodder for for investigation from the House.
But that's the point. In the mind of the president, it seems that there was this fear that there would be vindictive retribution prosecutions of Hunter Biden under a Trump-run Justice Department. And look, it is definitely the case that some of the attention to Hunter Biden is because of Joe Biden. I remember still being in South Carolina,
Thank you for tuning into the live show. Shout out to Average Joe. That's the moderator right here. God bless you, Average Joe. So Average Joe says Epstein did go to jail, though. Yes, Epstein went to jail. Epstein was never the president of the United States. Epstein was never the vice president of the United States. Never. He was a billionaire, right? He was a businessman, but it was never as influential as President Trump. He was never as influential as Joe Biden. Never. It's just like saying Obama was going to go to jail. How will Obama go to jail, bro? This is Obama. Like, you can say whatever you want to say about Obama, but these guys are not going to go close. Like, they're never going to get there. Man, this is just how the world is. I'm sorry, guys. I know you guys wish the world was different, but people like that do not go. They don't go. It's never gonna happen.
the day after the South Carolina primary that Joe Biden won in 2020 when he turned his campaign around, and all of a sudden Senator Ron Johnson was asking for information about Burisma. So, but that's the way it goes. It's also the case that Hunter Biden clearly over the course of his career benefited from being Joe Biden's son.
Just watch.
Of course he benefited. Of course he 1000% benefited.
CNN has learned President Biden will pardon his son Hunter Biden. CNN Chief National Affairs Correspondent Jeff Zeleny, I believe, is with us. Jeff, can you hear me?
And Jessica, yes.
Okay. What are
Joining us right now for more on this is CNN senior legal analyst, former state and federal prosecutor Elie Honig. Elie, another former pardon attorney called this an extraordinarily broad grant. Why is this so broad, more so than a typical presidential pardon? What do you think of it?
Okay, this is as broad as a pardon can possibly be. Ordinarily, a pardon will specify a certain case, and that happened here. It says, I hereby pardon Hunter Biden on the gun case in Delaware and on the tax case in California. But what's different about this one is it also says this is a full and unconditional pardon for all conduct going back to January 1 of 2014, which means Hunter Biden cannot be federally prosecuted for anything going back to 2014 and really before then, because before then is going to be precluded by the statute of limitations. And as you said before, the only historical precedent, the best historical precedent for this is the pardon of Richard Nixon by Gerald Ford, which has similar language that says full and unconditional pardon. So Joe Biden has pushed to the absolute outer limits of the breadth of the pardon power here.
And as you've heard, in the political sense, there's been a lot of reaction to this quickly, and there will be more today. But looking at it kind of in the, keeping it in the legal sense, past presidents generally have cited how pardon recipients have accepted responsibility for their actions as a reason to grant them a pardon. Biden is not here. He called it a miscarriage of justice that Hunter Biden was unfairly singled out, which is something that we have heard Donald Trump lean into before in targeting the Justice Department and the so-called deep state. Does Biden, in this move here, give Donald Trump new cover for whatever pardon action he decides to take in the future?
To be sure, Kate, we're already seeing that. The first reaction from Donald Trump and his team essentially is, what an injustice. Now we get to do the same thing, which is sort of an interesting twist of logic there, but without question, I mean, look, there has long been a fair debate, fair on both sides, about whether Hunter Biden is being treated overly leniently or overly zealously because of his status as Joe Biden's son. I think there are points to both sides of that. But what I think is not disputable is that this is a historic act of political nepotism. This is the granting of a pardon by the president to his son. Joe Biden even says, if you really parse his statement, he acknowledges that a substantial part of this is because Hunter Biden is his son. And that will land Joe Biden on a historic list that he probably doesn't want to be a part of, along with Bill Clinton, who pardoned his half-brother Roger Clinton, along with Donald Trump, who pardoned Charles Kushner, who is the father of his own son-in-law, Jared Kushner. So I'm sure Joe Biden understands the historic implications of what he's done, and now he's earned his way onto that list.
I want to read you something that the Democratic governor of Colorado, Jared Polis, posted about this. He's not okay with the move. He wrote in part, "I'm disappointed that he put his family ahead of the country. This is a bad precedent that could be abused by later presidents and will sadly tarnish his reputation." Does this damage the justice system?
Well, I totally agree with the governor that this pardon will tarnish Joe Biden's legacy. I mean, Joe Biden, let's be clear here, he lied to us for a long time. He said categorically, I will not pardon my son. He said, I will take it off the table. And he couched it in very high-minded terminology. I respect the Justice Department. I respect the jury's verdict. Well, now he's gone back on that. I don't know how many people actually believed him. I certainly didn't. There's tape of me saying there's no way he's going to make good on this. He's absolutely going to pardon Hunter Biden. But as to whether this tarnishes the justice system, I don't think I would go that far. I think this, like I said, will go down on the list of ignominious presidential pardons, but I don't think law students 50 or 100 years from now are going to look back at this as a horrific miscarriage of justice that undermines the foundation of our justice system. There is a reasonable argument that in some respects Hunter Biden was treated unfairly, and I think that will give Joe Biden some degree of cover here.
All right, joining us now is Democratic Congressman Glenn Ivey of Maryland. He currently sits on the House Judiciary and Ethics Committees. Congressman, I'm so grateful to have you on the program this morning. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So I do want to start with what we learned overnight with President Joe Biden, who decided to pardon his son Hunter, not just for the crimes that he was convicted of and pled guilty to, but for a sweeping 10-year period of time. Did President Biden make the right decision?
You know, I think I've got mixed views about it, frankly. I think that, you know, there is concern that the president legitimately had that the Trump administration and, you know, all this, the retribution tour stuff with respect to the Department of Justice and how he plans to use it against his enemies. I think there's a legitimate concern about what that could lead to. And I think that's part of why the president put in a 10-year stretch for the pardon term, because that should protect him against anything really up to statute of limitations, basically, for most offenses. On the other hand, though, I got to say that even though I don't think Hunter Biden would have been prosecuted under most circumstances, a pardon at this point will be used against, I think, Democrats when we're pushing to defend the Department of Justice against politicizing it, which is certainly what President Trump plans to do, or President-elect Trump. And, you know, the Patel nomination, I think many of the other nominations, it looks like he's going to try and use it in a way to go against and inflict retribution on people. And I think this sort of gives him ground to argue that, you know, both sides are doing the same thing. So I know that there was a real strong sentiment and you know, wanting to protect Hunter Biden from unfair prosecution. But this is going to be used against us when we're fighting the misuses that are coming from the Trump administration.
Very interesting. Sir, you know, for viewers who don't know, you yourself have worked at the highest levels of our law enforcement and legal communities and worlds, including in high-profile political scandals, Whitewater, for example. Do you think that Republicans have any ground to stand on in terms of the arguments that they're making about the Department of Justice? Is there validity to the feelings that they may have about how the department conducted itself in the first Trump administration and since?
No, I think most of that stuff is really overblown, and intentionally so. I mean, it's Trump. The one thing about Trump is it's not new when, you know, politicians are under investigation by the Department of Justice that they say it's political, a witch hunt. Those are phrases that have been used for decades by people in the crosshairs, say like Senator Menendez, for example, who was recently convicted for misconduct in office. The difference here is that twofold. One is a lot of people started believing Trump, and, you know, his MAGA base is, you know, fully on board with the argument that the entire Department of Justice is somehow, you know, an abuse of power and is just running out of control. and needs to be quote unquote reined in. And I think that's one of the big problems. The other one, though, is that he's going to be the president of the United States and will have full control over the Department of Justice. And, the Patel nomination for FBI, I think, is a bad omen for what he might want to do with that. And his statements about it have been pretty explicit. So it's pretty concerning, I would say. And, what's at risk is the overall rule of law in the United States, which has been a real bedrock for us for more than a century, and we need to fight to preserve that.
Congressman, Democrats did spend, of course, the last campaign strenuously arguing to Americans many of the points that you just laid out. Why, in your view, did Americans vote to put Republicans in charge of the White House and both houses of Congress? And what do you think your party needs to be doing differently going forward?
Well, it seems like the exit interview data that I've seen so far and, the post-mortem polling data seem to indicate that it was really driven by their views of the economy. And I think there were a couple of factors there. One was, I think we spent too much time talking about how good things were from a macroeconomic standpoint. And even though they are, frankly, and, in a lot of ways, the U.S. economy is the envy of the world. But there were a lot of individual people who just weren't feeling it in their daily lives and at their kitchen tables. And so I think they turned to the alternative, and that was Trump, unfortunately. Now, one of the things I think we could have done better there was communicate. I think a lot of times we passed landmark legislation that was helping people and will come to help people. Some of the especially the infrastructure big projects will come to bear, probably in the next year or two. So they take time to roll out, but people didn't know all the particulars, so they heard like initials, ARPA and that kind of thing, but they didn't know specifically what was going to benefit them, with one or two exceptions, like the prescription drug costs for insulin, for example. But overall, I think they didn't really know what we had done, and we didn't do a great job of telling them. And that led them to misunderstand where they stood in the economy and who was going to help them more than the other party. And I think the Democrats have done a great deal to help, but I don't think we got the message across.
All right, Congressman Glenn Ivey, very grateful to have you spend some time with us this morning. I hope you come.
It is what it is. He did what he had to do. Yeah, it's been done. He pardoned his son. Whatever comes next, he has to deal with the consequences, because there is always going to be a consequence, definitely. So he has to deal with the consequences for sure.
We're going to bring in co-host of The Five, Judge Jeanine Pirro. She's like a sister to me, and she also has plenty to say always. In fact, she never has it. She never has enough time to get it all in. So now you've got plenty of time on this show. So what do you think? I know you're not surprised. I know you're not shocked, but you've spent years talking about this. So what's your take?
Well, I think it's kind of ironic that you've got Joe Biden saying that, calling out the media for mistreating his son. I think everyone needs to step back for a minute. And as he attacks everyone for, his son's wrongdoing, we have to recognize that it was his own Department of Justice that indicted his son. But they indicted his son after leaving the highest earning years of money that he made when he was working with some of these foreign countries, so he wouldn't have to pay back so much, but more importantly, so it wouldn't tie in Joe Biden, as it was clearly was evidenced by a lot of the emails and information we found out. So that's the number one thing. I think we have to recognize if Joe Biden's complaining, it's his own Department of Justice who did him a solid with that initial fake deal that couldn't pass muster with a federal judge. And then, he ends up getting a real sweet deal in any event. So, and for those prosecutors who say they would never prosecute these kinds of cases, I wholeheartedly disagree. They do. You don't look at a federal statute and say, gee, they wrote the law, but, he's a good guy. He's not a good guy. He had the gun when he was showing himself off, unclothed, which that's a moral issue and not a legal one, but with the drugs and the hookers, which kind of adds to it. But more importantly, the idea that people don't go to prison for a tax evasion is kind of crazy. They do all the time. And finally, I think that, with this whole thing about the pardon, this pardon, remember, is before the sentence, before he served his term. And Americans need to understand that a lot of people get pardons after they've, served their time, paid their debt to society. That's very different from here. The guy doesn't even get sentenced. Nothing really happens. And it's like, okay. And I believe, by the way, there's no way he was going to not pardon his son. But I can't wait to hear from Karine Jean-Pierre tomorrow. And I know she's going to start out by saying, the president has always made it clear how much he loves his son. And the president has always been clear that his son had a problem, and as a family, they're coming together,
Judge,
so it's fascinating.
Judge Lisa Booth here. I love that you're pointing out, too, Hunter Biden's an adult, right? Like, the media and the left try to treat him as if he's some sort of child. This is a grown man who knew what he was doing when he made these poor decisions. He's a grown man. He's an adult. We've been talking a little bit throughout the show of what impact, if it will have an impact, on the confirmation hearings for some of these nominees. What do you think? How do you think this plays out? Does it impact those confirmation hearings?
Well, I think to a certain extent it will impact the hearings because now it's kind of fired up again. People are going to, we're after the election. What's amazing to me, Lisa, is everybody I know is very happy. Everywhere I go, people are happy. But things are relatively calm. The left is still licking their wounds. They can't believe they lost it. They think it's a messaging problem. It was a candidate problem. It was an undemocratic problem that they had on the other side. But I think that this kind of it heightens all of the tensions. And I think that it's going to make it a little more difficult than it might have been. But there's also that piece that, we've got these nominations that are being made by the president, and we're talking about Hunter Biden, Joe Biden lying again, as you said, on his way out, which I think is just classic and perfect. But, the good news is we have the Senate, and these candidates that the president is announcing are phenomenal, for the Department of Justice. Pam Bondi, I think she is a phenomenal pick. Yeah. I think she knows exactly what she's going to do, and I don't think there's any way that she doesn't get through the nomination process.
Can we just talk about the irony of the fact that Kash Patel was just basically named, the nominee for running the FBI, and at the same time, you've got Hunter Biden, who's just been pardoned by his father. The irony is rich. And then if you think about the FBI's involvement in the Mar-a-Lago raid and the classified documents, which, by the way, there were also classified documents that were taken from Joe Biden's home in Delaware.
When he was a senator, which is worse.
It's crazy. And now he's, and I wonder, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think Donald Trump is going to let this go when he takes the White House? Is he going to, or is he going to spend the next 4 years trying to, prosecute Joe Biden the way that the Biden administration tried to prosecute and did prosecute Donald Trump?
Well, if history is any indication, if you recall when Donald Trump went in 2017, he said, I'm not going to indict Hillary when they had her left to right on the classified emails. They had her on the Clinton Foundation that hadn't had a straight audit in years. Jim Comey was the last one to look at it. And I think that now the irony is very rich, Julie. The whole idea that, you're coming in loaded for bear for president of the United States, a former president, and then, the other president's son is skating. It's really amazing.
Yeah. Judge Jeanine, I love you. Thank you so much for coming on a Sunday night. You're such a trooper. I guess you'll be talking about this on the 5 tomorrow. We'll all be watching.
We will. Thank you.
All right. Love you. See you later.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
That's what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. Okay. It is what it is. He did what he had to do. Anyway, more from the pardon.
We begin with a Fox News alert. President Biden pardoning his son Hunter despite previously saying he would not use the pardon power on his son. Both Democrats and Republicans criticizing the move, with one Democrat lawmaker saying Biden, quote, got this one wrong. You're watching Fox and Friends First here on a Monday morning. I am Todd Pyro. Carly Shimkus has the day off. Madeline Rivera is in Washington with more on the president pardoning the first son. Maddie.
Good morning, Todd. The president has long said he would respect the rule of law, trying to distinguish himself from President-elect Trump, who has accused the Justice Department of being politicized. But the president says he does feel Hunter has been unfairly targeted. In a statement, the president says, "From the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision-making, and I kept my word even as I've watched my son being selectively and unfairly prosecuted. Here's the truth. I believe in the justice system, but as I have wrestled with this, I also believe raw politics has infected this process and it led to a miscarriage of justice." Time and time again, the White House and the president have said he would not pardon Hunter or commute his sentence. The White House at times getting frustrated when asked multiple times about the possibility.
Is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Well, is there
I just said no. I just answered. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes. I am satisfied that I'm not going to do anything. I said I abide by the jury decision. I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Does the president have any intention of pardoning him?
We've been asked that question multiple times. Our answer stands, which is no.
Reaction from Democrats have been mixed. Colorado's Governor Jared Polis saying, "I am disappointed that he put his family ahead of the country. This is a bad precedent that could be abused by later presidents." Arizona Congressman Greg Stanton saying, "I respect President Biden, but I think he got this one wrong. This was not a politically motivated prosecution. Hunter committed felonies and was convicted by a jury of his peers." President-elect Trump weighing in as well, saying, does the pardon given by Joe to Hunter include the J6 hostages who have now been in prison for years? Such an abuse and miscarriage of justice. Hunter's sentencing hearings were scheduled for December 12th for his gun case and December 16th for his tax case. Todd.
Madeline Rivera live for us this morning. Maddie, thank you.
You got it.
Let's bring in criminal defense attorney Lexi Rigdon. And Lexi, pretty simple, short question right off the top. What changed?
I don't really think anything changed. I honestly think this was probably his plan all along. What changed, one of the things that changed is that he's not running anymore. And it has been such a terrible political season for Democrats with Kamala's defeat that I think at this point he figured, I have nothing to lose. I'm in the twilight of my years. I mean, I think he's 81 years old. He was kicked out by his own party. He was basically forced not to run. And then the greatest injustice to him is that after an objectively bad candidate who can't string a sentence together loses, then the establishment blames him for not getting out sooner. And so I think that if I were Joe Biden, I probably would have put a finger in the eye to everybody and said, you know what, my highest and best priority is now just taking care of my son. And I don't care what people think. I'm never going to please the Republicans. And I don't care about the Democrats who stabbed me in the back.
I think that's the explanation. The only thing that changed in my mind, the election is over. To your point about him not having really sort of anybody he's beholden to anymore, and the candidate that replaced him getting beat soundly. I want to focus on the law now, Lexi. The pardons language covers all offenses, including ones he has not yet been charged for. Is that how pardons work? Sort of this blanket immunity for all illegality, regardless of whether it's been discovered yet?
Well, that is very interesting. It's very broad and sweeping, and it covers a 10-year period. And you look at presidents who have pardoned family members before. In the case of Roger Clinton, he had already served his sentence. Same with Jared Kushner's father. So this is broad and sweeping because it not only prevents him from serving a sentence, but it forgives him for any crimes against the United States that he may have committed in a period of 10 years. So it definitely is. It's definitely a very broad pardon. And if you actually look online about how a normal person applies for a pardon, normal people aren't even supposed to apply for them until a certain period of time after serving their sentence. And so obviously this has been done before in the case of Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon and when he hadn't been convicted or indicted or anything like that. So it's not necessarily unprecedented to have a controversial pardon, but given that this is his son and given the amount of times that he said that he wasn't going to do this and his staff, Karine Jean-Pierre, kind of rolling her eyes and annoyed that she's getting the question again. This is pretty big news. But when I heard about it, I was not surprised.
So what you're telling me is it is not normal in the pardon setting for somebody to publish an article in the Washington Post. Have your defense team publish an article in Washington. Interesting. Noted. I'll make a note of that for next time. Joe Biden said he issued the pardon after he watched his son be selectively and unfairly prosecuted. But wasn't it Joe Biden's DOJ that prosecuted Hunter?
It was, and how everyone's joking online when they see Biden with the big grin with Trump in the office. Maybe he really did vote for him after all. I mean, they're now singing off the same song sheet, at least when it comes to the DOJ. That you can't look at you can't look at necessarily just one prosecution and say it's politically motivated, right? My son's was politically motivated, but nobody else's was. And so this is just a very interesting turn of events. It is his own DOJ, and they've been touting the merits of the cases against Trump, but, not against his son.
Quickly, before we let you go, what does this pardon mean for Joe Biden and the rest of the Biden families? Let's call them business dealings that have come under scrutiny.
Well, there's no reason. If they believe that Hunter is kind of like the nexus or the nucleus of those transactions, then there's no reason to look into them any further if he was pardoned. Who knows? There
you go. Hey, this seems to have worked out pretty well for Joe as well. Interesting how that worked out. Lexi Regan, thanks for joining us. Breaking News Morning Week.
There you have it. Hunter has been pardoned, and it's over. But now the news is he might be pardoning more of his family members. Check this out.
Welcome back. President Biden pardoning his son Hunter, claiming that his first son was selectively and unfairly prosecuted. The sweeping pardon applies to any crimes Hunter has or may have committed over the past decade. Politico is comparing this to the blanket pardon Richard Nixon received from Gerald Ford back in 1974. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, who led the investigation into the Biden family business deals, released this statement. The charges Hunter faced were just the tip of the iceberg and the blatant corruption that President Biden and the Biden crime family have lied about to the American people. Comer also accusing Biden and his family of doing everything they can to avoid accountability. Joining me now is Ohio Congressman Warren Davidson, a member of the House Financial Services and Foreign Affairs Committees. Congressman, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Reaction to this blanket pardon, which covers everything, all charges he's exonerated from, including any charges he's yet to been served with.
Yeah, good morning, Maria. I think the tell is, when does it start? It starts in 2014. In 2014, Hunter Biden set up a pharmaceutical business in Ukraine and became a board member of Burisma. And right after Donald Trump said, shouldn't somebody look into this? The whole left-wing Long March machine kicked in, and they impeached Donald Trump. You look at the whole cascade of things that went on from there. And ultimately, when, Congressman Comer is talking about the investigation that went into Hunter Biden, but also the broader Biden crime family. They exposed all kinds of crimes, and Hunter Biden pled guilty to charges that faced up to 17 years in prison for tax evasion. I mean, this is pretty aggressive tax evasion, not like, oh, I forgot to file something or didn't disclose something else. Pretty overt schemes that he pled guilty to. And why? Part of it was they didn't want the discovery of Hunter Biden on the stand and being cross-examined. And so I think the other part of the tell will be, does it expand to other members like Jim Biden and Joe Biden himself?
So what do you think? I mean, look, the words that the Oversight Committee has used with regard to Joe Biden and the Biden family are money laundering, okay, influence peddling. This basically covers everything. He's exonerated from everything. Is this going to apply to Joe Biden? No, I mean, I know President Trump has bigger fish to fry. He's probably not going to do anything about Joe Biden money laundering. But it's pretty amazing as you see President Trump face 89 indictments. All of these years of all of these indictments and these attacks on President Trump. And yet, poof, everything goes away for Hunter Biden in 3 seconds with this pardon.
I think the big thing with the Bidens is, 22 plus shell companies, and they didn't make anything. Before coming into Congress, I had, a host of manufacturing companies and related entities for real estate and everything else. We made stuff. There's no, we had physical buildings. There's no building anywhere other than Joe Biden's household. And you see multiple references for 10% for the big guy. So I think everyone will really be surprised if there aren't subsequent pardons closer to January 20th. And the timing on this was really important because Hunter Biden was facing sentencing for his gun charges.
So you think Joe Biden, before he walks out of office, is going to pardon other family members?
Yeah, I think a lot of people will be surprised if he doesn't, and I would assume that he will, just based on the work that the House Oversight Committee's already done. But you never know.
So you guys think he's going to pardon more of his family members apart from Hunter? I mean, why would he do that? Do they have anything on them?
I mean, we'll see what it goes. I mean, Joe Biden said he wasn't going to pardon Hunter either. So we'll see where the scope of this goes. But the timing really is interesting. You go back to Ukraine, so much focuses there, and you look at a willingness to even make a pretty wholesale effort to get into World War III in order to cover up activities in Ukraine.
Wow, this is just extraordinary. Do you think that this basically confirms the fact that President Trump was right all along, that all these agencies have been weaponized, and he's trying to bring in Kash Patel to clean it all up? The president-elect nominating Kash Patel, former Defense Department Chief of Staff, to serve as his incoming FBI director. Trump praised Kash as a brilliant lawyer, investigator, and America First fighter who has spent his career exposing corruption, defending justice, and protecting the American people. Trump added that he played a pivotal role in uncovering the Russia hoax. He sure did. I spoke with him throughout all of those years. Kash Patel released this statement: "It is an honor of a lifetime to be nominated by President Trump to serve as the director of the FBI. Together, we will restore integrity, accountability, and equal justice to our justice system and return the FBI to its rightful mission, protecting the American people." Congressman, your reaction to Kash Patel's nomination?
You nailed it, Maria. Trump was exactly right, and that's why he's picking outsiders this time. He tried insiders that were supposed to understand the system, and they were going to work to, quote, drain the swamp and support the president. What you saw him do continually was undermine his power and go back to people like Alex Vindman, who basically played a central role in the whole Ukraine impeachment hoax, the Russia hoax, all these things that were weaponized against Donald Trump. So it's overt that the weaponization has occurred now. We've had a weaponization committee, which I've also been able to serve on, that's exposed all kinds of things that now people go, well, yeah, of course they were censoring and filtering speech. But remember when that would get you canceled just for saying it? That was all supposed to be a lie. And that's where you need somebody like Kash Patel. That's why Matt Gaetz was inspiring in a lot of ways as well at DOJ. So the people that Trump brings in now, I think, are overwhelmingly outsiders like Pete Hegseth, like Robert F. Kennedy, like Tulsi Gabbard. They're people that are really serious about reforming things. And I think that is going to be the theme of Trump's second administration.
Yeah, and I spoke with Kash Patel on Sunday Morning Futures last week, and I said to him, look, the FBI is currently running scared. You've got Andrew McCabe, the former head of the FBI, calling Kash Patel dangerous. Why is he dangerous? Because he knows that Kash Patel knows exactly what the leadership of the FBI did
Kash
to
ain't
Trump
playing
and
around,
so many
bro.
others, supporters of his. Here's Kash Patel with me last Sunday, responding to the question that I asked, which is how come Andrew McCabe from the FBI is calling you dangerous? Watch this.
Look, my 16 plus years in government service as a public defender, as a national security prosecutor, as a civilian in Joint Special Operations Command, leading President Trump's counterterrorism missions, taking out Baghdadi, returning hostages, serving as his deputy director of national intelligence, and lastly as chief of staff. The only thing I was beholden to was the United States Constitution. And yes, I was a lead investigator where he exposed the Russiagate crimes that Comey, McCabe, Strzok, and Page, and so many others committed. And we reported to Congress those oversight matters, and those were taken up through them in the right course to the American people. So if anyone has a complaint about that and questions my unwavering commitment to the Constitution, I'm happy to talk to them about it.
Yeah,
So what about
that's the
that?
guy right there.
I mean, do you think we will, in fact, see the fraudsters finally face some accountability, those fraudsters who ripped the country apart with the lie of Russia collusion?
It brings joy to so many people to see it. And look, Kash Patel is also saying not just that it was a Russia hoax, he's talking about the crimes that were committed. And that's been the number one question I've had. Look, I got elected in 2016. The number one question I've had the whole time is when is somebody going to jail? Now, to be fair, when Democrats ask that, they think Republicans should go to jail. But a lot of everybody else is like, they know that the people in these agencies are wielding them as weapons against the American people.
Right.
And they're tired of it. And not just in the law enforcement three-letter agencies, in the healthcare agencies. And I think that's why the alliance that Donald Trump formed with Robert F. Kennedy is so important, because there has to be accountability for COVID and all of the weaponized surveillance of American citizens linked to the FBI. We need to take our country back, and we need to restore a government small enough to fit back in our Constitution.
Yeah, what a joke. I mean, the fact that this pardon wipes away everything is just one more indication of the weaponization of this government. Real quick on policy, President Trump is threatening a 100% tariff on the countries who are trying to abandon the U.S. dollar. Trump warning the bloc of countries known as BRICS, which include Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, United Arab Emirates. They've been reportedly increasing talks about moving away from the dollar. He says, if you do so, you'll pay 100% in tariff. Good idea?
Well, look, I think Donald Trump understands the stakes, and he's trying to make it clear to them, these are the stakes. You're really trying to topple the power of the United States, the strength of our economy, the stability for really Western civilization is the dollar. It is the reserve currency. So I think it really brings to the forefront the level of negotiation.
And that's another thing that I'm so proud of. When Trump said those words, he said the BRICS countries should come together and support the dollar, because there's no way they're going to go on with another currency. This is a commander-in-chief that you want in your corner. This is a man that you want to lead your country. This is a legendary. This is the type of president we want and we need at this crucial time. Okay, with the border, with the foreign policy, with the economy, with everything going this way, we definitely need President Trump. All right, here we go.
I am satisfied that I'm not going to do anything. I said I abide by the jury decision. I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Does the president have any intention of pardoning him?
We've been asked that question multiple times. Our answer stands, which is no.
Yeah. Well, President Biden releasing this statement, quote, from the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision-making, and I kept my word, even as I have watched my son being selectively and unfairly prosecuted. Here's the truth. I believe in the justice system, but as I have wrestled with this, I also believe raw politics has infected this process, and it led to a miscarriage of justice. Hunter also releasing a statement saying, I have admitted and taken responsibility for my mistakes during the darkest days of my addiction. Mistakes that have been exploited to publicly humiliate and shame me and my family for political support. I will never take the clemency I have been given today for granted and will devote the life I have rebuilt to helping those who are still sick and suffering. President-elect Trump reacting on Truth Social, writing this: does the pardon given by Joe to Hunter include the January 6th hostages who have now been imprisoned for years, such as an abuse and miscarriage of justice? Good comment from President Trump there. Liz Peek, your reaction.
Well, first of all, I don't think anyone in America is surprised that Joe Biden went back on his word to pardon Hunter Biden. But honestly, he did it in a way that I think really undermines the case that the Department of Justice is not political. I mean, he's saying, look, Hunter Biden was singled out, prosecuted for political reasons. We know, in fact, the opposite is true, Maria. They bent over backwards, the FBI and the DOJ, to let Hunter Biden get basically off scot-free from various things that he has done wrong. And obviously, a jury felt the same way. But I think Biden has inadvertently opened the door to Trump's argument that he has been prosecuted unfairly and that the DOJ indeed has been weaponized. That's his case. An awful lot of Americans think it's true. And we'll be talking about Kash Patel in a moment. But listen, that's the entire story about the DOJ and the FBI.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Totally agree. But what really gets me on this pardon is that this exonerates Hunter from everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Not just the federal gun charges, not just the drug charges, everything from 2014 to today, a 10-year period, even crimes he has yet to be charged with.
Yeah.
And we all know how we have reported so extensively on what the Oversight Committee has said Hunter and Joe have done, and that is money laundering and influence peddling. So that's gone. I mean, this pardon does not apply to Joe Biden, but Cheryl, you know that this basically wipes away everything from Joe as well.
And that was the initial question mark was, did Joe Biden do this for his son, or did Joe Biden do this for himself? And to be clear, even Democrats are criticizing President Biden's move on this. Not that pardons don't happen. You know, Bill Clinton, pardoned his brother Roger. Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon. But even Jared Polis on X wrote this. He said, as a father, I certainly understand Joe Biden's desire to help his son. I'm disappointed he put his family ahead of the country. Greg Stanton, a Democrat from Arizona. I respect Biden. He got this one wrong. He said this wasn't a politically motivated prosecution. Hunter committed felonies, and he was convicted by a jury of his peers. So, look, I mean, those charges, any average American that would have committed the gun charges, the tax charges, which were actually more serious than the gun charges because of the lying on the forms, any other American, Maria, would have been prosecuted even worse. Hunter still got that sweetheart deal in the beginning that was reversed. He finally goes in front of a jury, convicted, and Joe Biden says, nope. Not happening.
Well, I think Liz makes the right point because this puts an underlining under what Trump has been saying for so long, that this government is so weaponized. I mean, for God's sakes, Donald Trump was indicted 89 times. This is so much BS. It's unbelievable. This is all politically motivated. Trump officially nominated Kash Patel for the director of FBI to replace Director Christopher Wray. And this is important because he has said for so many years he wants to clean up this weaponization. Now, I spoke with Kash Patel just last week on Sunday Morning Futures and asked him what it is going to take to make people trust these government agencies again. Can they be restored after all this weaponization that Biden and company put in place? Watch this.
Exposure of corruption. Put out the documents, put out the evidence. We only have gotten halfway down the Russiagate hole. The people need to know that their FBI is restored by knowing full well what they did to unlawfully surveil them. The people need to know that there has been a de-weaponization, a defanging of the Department of Justice, and their houses of worship will no longer be raided. But they need to be shown the documents that said this was the reasoning they weaponized justice. And that, in my opinion, is how Congress can most importantly secure the trust or resecure the trust of these agencies and departments.
So we'll see, John Lonsky. I mean, those Russiagate fraudsters are still running around. No accountability there. We'll see if Kash Patel comes in, gets confirmed, and can clean this up.
You know, what's even worse is the fact that you had the FBI going ahead, running around and chasing people that disagreed with a woke agenda as it applied to education. Also the pro-life crowd. He was speaking about church members being followed by the FBI. That's ridiculous. So this politicalization of the FBI has to end immediately. We got to get politics out of justice. Otherwise, we're not going to have justice anymore.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Well, there you have it. There you have it. So now the Republicans and the Democrats are on the same page, which is good for the country. This is good for the country. Now, does the pardon mean that we're going to all agree in one accord and say, you know what, let's pardon, what's his name, Hunter? No. Okay. However, I support it. Most people don't support it, but I support a father pardoning his son. It is what it is. Most people look at Joe as a president first before a father, but he's a father first.
As we sit here in Normandy, your son Hunter is on trial, and I know that you cannot speak about an ongoing federal prosecution. But let me ask you, will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
Welcome back to Sunday Night in America. Even though he said he would not, President Biden has issued a broad pardon for his son, Hunter. Hunter Biden has been convicted of gun and tax charges, and that was with Merrick Garland running DOJ. Who knows what would have happened with a less friendly face at the top of the prosecution pyramid? But we won't ever know because the pardon is so expansive. In other legal news, President-elect Donald Trump has named Kash Patel as the new head of the FBI, which means current director Chris Wray will not complete his 10-year term. Kash Patel is a former federal prosecutor and a former federal public defender. He also helped find the source of the funding for the Steele dossier and uncovered FISA abuse when he worked on the House Intelligence Committee. The media and the left are pulling their hair out, but then again, both believe the Russia collusion hoax in the first place. Joining us now are Katie Cherkasky and Tom Dupree, two very, very fine lawyers who are going to help us dissect this. Katie, let's start with you. I, for one, I guess because I'm so cynical, I never believed President Biden when he said he wasn't going to pardon his child. Are you surprised at the pardon?
Absolutely not surprised at all. The only question is why he carried this on for so long at the great expense of American taxpayers. There has been so much weaponization of the Justice Department, and this is yet another example. He was asked time and again whether he would pardon him, whether he would commute his sentence, and he vehemently denied that. There's no two ways about it. So certainly it's just a brazen lie. It's very shameless.
All right, Tom, you're a smart lawyer. Why now and why so expansive? I mean, I would love to have a pardon that went all the way back to college. His pretty much does. And it is after the conviction but before the sentencing. Is that to avoid a pre-sentence investigation? Is that to avoid the temptation to cooperate against others? Why now?
Well, I think the timing, Trey, is simple. It was after the election. And the reason why Biden was continually, as we now see, lying was because it was at a time when he was a candidate, or at least Kamala Harris was a candidate, and he didn't want to come out and say what he presumably planned to do all along. I think he wanted to issue it now so that it would come before sentencing. I think that the political hit would have been even more severe if the judges, as everyone expected, sentenced Hunter Biden to serve hard time, and then the president comes in and issues the pardon. The political hit would have been even more significant. So I think that explains the timing. But look, there's no way of getting around this, no way to put this more gently than this is just total disrespect for the rule of law.
Well, Katie, let me ask you about that. I think all three of us are former washed-up prosecutors. We're not ordinarily huge fans of pardons, although I have made exceptions on occasions for people that I thought were wrongly targeted. Well, what do you make of that? I mean, the president is indeed at the top of the executive branch, and we as prosecutors serve under that. What's your general take on pardons? When are they appropriate? When are they legitimate?
Well, the president has essentially limitless pardon power over federal offenses. There is an open legal question about the prospective pardons of crimes that have not been indicted, but that may have occurred during the time frame. Obviously, the wording of the pardon here is meant to encompass any and all potential issues that have never been charged yet, but that many people have been wondering, namely the money that they've been getting from Ukraine and other overseas sources. So this pardon is essentially meant to cover that. Whether it legally and constitutionally does so is something that has never been affirmatively adjudicated. But I guess we'll see if Joe Biden tries to issue a pardon for himself before he leaves office altogether, and then we'll really know what this is about.
Tom, give us a crash course in law school.
I don't think Joe Biden is going to pardon himself. I mean, if he does that, that's just whack. But anything can happen.
Cannot serve as judges in their children's trial. They can't serve on the jury for their children. They can't prosecute their children, but apparently they can pardon them. And I get the unusual fact that he is the president, but there's a reason that we don't let parents sit or stand in judgment of their own children. They're just not known for their objectivity, are they?
Exactly. They are probably the least impartial people in the world to sit and decide something like that. But look, you put your finger on it. The reason we are where we are is because the Constitution speaks broadly. It vests a virtually unlimited pardon power in the President of the United States. It doesn't limit the people that can be pardoned. It doesn't limit the scope of the pardons. It doesn't limit the offenses that can be pardoned. It really trusts that we will have chief executives who execute this awesome power in a responsible, fair, impartial way. I don't think it was exercised in a fair and impartial way here, though.
You know, Katie, for all the talk of retribution and revenge, I really cannot think of a single person that former President Trump prosecuted that was perceived as a political enemy. In fact, quite the opposite. Shortly after he won, he said, no, I'm not going to do anything with Hillary Clinton. I think his exact quote was, she's been through enough. So for all the talk of retribution and revenge, I don't see any evidence of it with respect to President Trump.
Well, that's always been the hypocrisy from the left, saying that Donald Trump was going to weaponize the Justice Department, as they were doing so all along, including going along with this charade of the Hunter Biden trials for crimes that are absolutely not sympathetic at all, that are very serious and significant, and for which he does deserve punishment. And of course, all prosecutions are in some way selective in the sense that there is discretion about who is taken to trial. But when there is hard evidence and that someone is essentially dead to rights, then they do deserve to be brought to justice. And again, Joe Biden has carte blanche authority to issue this pardon here, but I don't think it's a highly sympathetic situation. I think we all know exactly what's going on.
Tom, let's switch gears real quick. The president also announced that Kash Patel is his pick to head the FBI. I am not at all surprised that Christopher Wray is not going to finish out his 10-year term. Chris Wray was told eyeball to eyeball by the Speaker of the House, you can be part of the cleanup crew or you can be part of the cover-up crew. And I don't know that many Republicans that think that he was part of the cleanup crew. What happened at the Bureau? Before James Comey, most people could not tell you who the FBI director was. And now, at least in my judgment, the reputation of the Bureau has taken a significant hit. What happened?
Well, it's a great question, Trey. And look, historians will go back and look at what happened over the last decade and probably reach different conclusions. I think, in my view, what happened is that the FBI lost the reputation that it always held of being an impartial, neutral law enforcement agency. And it was come to be seen by many people that it was acting out of political motives, or it was pursuing investigations and prosecutions on the basis of evidence that wouldn't normally justify investigations and prosecutions. I think that the next director of the FBI is really going to have his work cut out for him, because I do believe that the vast majority of FBI employees are loyal, honest civil servants. And they've got to get back to that place where we were before the last 10 years, where the American people can have total faith and confidence that this is a neutral, impartial, professional law enforcement agency, the gold standard, really.
I worked elbow to elbow with Kash, former federal prosecutor, former federal public defender, a unique background. I think he has been unfairly maligned. He'll have a confirmation hearing, and we shall see what comes out. But we wouldn't know about the Steele dossier if it weren't for Kash Patel, and we wouldn't have had expertise on a Sunday night if it hadn't been for two high-priced lawyers joining us. So
thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. Double tap your screen. Let's get the likes up. I'm sure y'all how to like the live stream, because some people are like, I don't know how to like your live stream, Genesis. This is how you like the live stream. You double tap your screen twice. You double tap your screen twice. That is how to like the live stream. All right. With that being said, this is the live stream for this morning. I want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in. Thank you to the moderator, Average Joe. Shout out to everybody for tuning in. God bless you. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dream. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dream. Believe in God. All right. Never, ever quit. Just like the 47th. He never stopped believing. He never quit. And he won at the end of the day. So, thank you. Thank you to the veterans as well. Thank you to the veterans, okay? Tap your screen, like the live stream, subscribe to the channel. And I just posted a video on the video page about this whole situation, the pardon for Hunter and Joe Biden doing what he had to do. So go watch that video. Go watch that video after this live. Go watch that video, okay? Thank you so much. God bless you.